Good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate you very, very much. We know you've got many choices to make every single day, and we are so very, very grateful that you always choose to spend some time with us. So thank you for being here. You know the drill. Tapping is clapping, liking is loving, sharing is caring. We are crowdfunded. You want to support the channel? Best way to do that is through the various appetizer apps at Factsstillmatter. As a reminder, we are using the items in our merch store as a way to raise awareness and raise money for an organization that we are now proudly sponsoring and supporting, blackmamasmatter.org. Any item sold in the merch store this week, any item, whatever it is, a mug, a hoodie, a sweatshirt, a t-shirt, all the proceeds from the sales of those items will go directly to that particular cause. In particular, there's one that was created on this behalf, but we decided to expand it. There's new, the cattle invasion, that you can find that one in there. The progressive in your pocket, and who knows, Kipper might even make an appearance. Actually, he does. So please go in and consider checking that out. So if you ever wanted to purchase an item from the merch store, this week would be a great way to do it. We'll probably extend it through Sunday, and I'll remind folks every single morning. So again, any item sold in the merch store this week, and all the proceeds of the sales of those shirts will go directly to this cause, blackmamasmatter.org. So thank you for being here. Yesterday was rough, I must admit. There's a lot of outside factors going on in my life. Today would be my mother's 90th birthday. Well, I'm thinking about that. And I always ask myself, like, because I've been very, open and honest about it. One of the, if not the most, the most influential voice in my life. She passed away when I was 22. And I always think about what she would do, how she would react now if I was having conversations with her, because she was like progressive before progressive was a thing, right? And I can just try to imagine having conversations with her about what's going on now. She'd just be like, and in typical, highly educated Italian-American mother, she would sort of just look at people who would be defending predators and be like, she would just look at them and the blood would drain from their body. Because every time in my house, like in a lot of people's houses, right, it was like, don't tell dad. In my house, it was don't tell mom, because nothing had to be said. It was just the look. So she would give the look. And if you know Italian culture, there's this thing called the Maloik or the Malocchia, which is like the evil eye. She didn't have to do that. She would just stare at me and literally the blood would just rush from my body. So happy birthday, Carmela. I miss you, but I feel you every single day. So thank you all for being here very, very much. Like I mentioned, yesterday was rough, but we're not afraid to have these conversations, friends. We never will be. It's just oftentimes it just piles up for me, and being the empath that I am, it kind of builds. So sorry we had to end early, but we're glad you're here. So thank you for being here very, very much. A lot to get to. Obviously, I'm not going to call yesterday's vote in the House a surprise, but the Senate sort of surprised me, I must say. So in case you're just waking up and didn't know, the House, with the exception of one vote, that was Clay Higgins, and we'll get into that in just a second, passed the Epstein Transparency Act. It immediately went to the Senate. There was churning and burning, people from the House complaining. If you watched any of the mods and I were chatting back and forth, if you watched any of the debate around this topic, Democrats were speaking on behalf of the survivors, and Republicans were trying to blame Democrats. It was a reflection of what we see here, right? They couldn't just signing the Transparency Act to get the files released couldn't be enough. They had to kind of lean in on their bullshit. And Clay Higgins was the sole no vote. And I'm trying to think about how he goes back to his district and explains it. But this is what he said. I'm going to do my best, Clay Higgins. I have been a principled no on this bill from the beginning. What was wrong with the bill 3 months ago is still wrong today. It abandons 250 years of criminal justice procedure in America. As written, this bill reveals and injures thousands of innocent people, witnesses, people who provided alibis, family members, etc. If enacted in its current form, this bill of broad reveal of criminal investigative files released to a rabid media will absolutely result in innocent people being hurt. Not by my vote. The Oversight Committee is conducting a thorough investigation that has already released well over 60,000 pages of documents from the Epstein case. That effort will continue in a manner that provides all due protections for innocent Americans. if the Senate amends the bill to properly address privacy of victims and other Americans who are named but not criminally implicated, then I will vote for that bill when it comes back to the House. Dadgummit. Unsurprising, he doesn't talk about the survivors. He doesn't talk about the victims at all in this. His concern is about people who may be innocent being exposed. That one line, if enacted in its current form, this type of broad reveal of criminal investigative files released to a rabid media will absolutely result in innocent people being hurt. Okay. And that was the takeaway for me yesterday in watching. And by the way, Jamie Raskin for Speaker of the House. Can we make that happen? We're going to talk about that this morning because of a federal judge ruling against Texas and their gerrymandering effort, which blew me away. But it was this debate back and forth. Jamie Raskin representing the Democrats, Jim Jordan representing the Republicans, and every single chance that Republicans had, they didn't talk about the survivors. They didn't talk about the level of just the diabolical global crimes involved. They just wanted to say, they wanted to pick and choose bullshit, and they wanted to disparage Democrats and say the Democrats hid this, the Democrats hid that. We're going to dunk on all that shit this morning because, quite frankly, this is who this party has become. We touched briefly on yesterday on Christian nationalism, and we're going to spend more time talking about it today because, to me, that's what this entire thing is based in, right? The disregard for women that our society has, and at the top of the list are people connected with Christian nationalism, and we know the Christian nationalist ties run deep within the Trump administration, the first time and the second time. Paula White Cain, Russ Vought, people connected with the Heritage Foundation, Stephen Miller, J.D. Vance, Pete Hegseth. These are people who believe in this Christian nationalist theory, this dominionist theory, this 7 mountain mandate bullshit where women don't have a place in society. So here we are again. They don't believe women. We do. They don't believe survivors. We do. And this is across all spectrums. We heard an incredible conversation from our new friend, Francis. And by the way, because of that conversation yesterday and because of how intense it was, we decided we would add another channel to our Discord. I just want to make sure I get the name of the channel exactly right before I mess it up, because I'm want to do that at times. It is called Believe Us. Go to our Discord, join, and it's an opportunity for you to tell your story there. So oftentimes just writing it down, just getting it out. And again, I'm not afraid to have these conversations, and I am humbled and honored by the fact that people feel safe enough to share their stories here. But you may not want to do it this way. You may not want to do it anyway. You just may decide you want to write and be anonymous about it. And you can under a Discord handle, and you can just tell your story there. So you'll find that in the Discord. Please consider joining. It's free. If you have a difficult time doing that, just reach out to one of the mods. Okay, so what do we know? Well, we know that the Senate unanimous consent. First of all, I'm not a big fan of unanimous consent. It's just a procedure. Anybody can introduce it. It was offered up by Chuck Schumer, and nobody opposed, so it passed. The reason I don't like unanimous consent is it doesn't put anybody on the record. Tim Burchett, you remember, tried to do that in the House, and then he tried to say it was Democrats that blocked it. It wasn't. It was a Republican serving as Speaker because Tim Burchett violated the rules. I don't like the unanimous consent because it doesn't put people on the record. So now we know Clay Higgins, my stars, boy. We know that he is the lone vote against. Now, I'd like people to talk about that. We'll get you MAGA forever. Yeah, we're gonna see. This is a thing, MAGA forever. Do you think this is a flex? I'm just curious. I'm gonna pin your comment because do you think it's a flex? Do you think any of us care? Do you think any of us care about the people who are connected to this? We want them all held accountable. So I can imagine MAGA forever saying, I'm gonna dunk on this guy fact. I'm gonna say Larry Summers. Let's see him defend that. I'm not defending that. We don't give a fuck who's on it. Why do you care so much? Why won't you talk about Donald Trump? Because Larry Summers is mentioned like 25, 50 times, where Donald Trump is mentioned over 1,500 times. You know how I know this? Because we have the documents and we have the proof. There was a report done. This is how many times Larry Summers' name was mentioned in the emails that were dropped. 117 times. Compared to Donald Trump, 1,607 times. 70 times, MAGA forever. Would you care to explain that? So you won't. That's why we just laugh at your stupid ass comments. It's just dumb. Just leave. So, anywho, what happens now, right? So the Senate passed it via unanimous consent, and it goes to the president's desk. So I have been racking my brain back and forth, having conversations with myself about how we solve for this, or what's the political approach that the president's going to take. So he made a statement on Truth Social. Everybody keep tapping and sharing, please. So this was before the Senate passed it. And I think the expectation was, well, let me do this. Let me play some sound from Bitch Boy first, because Bitch Boy was caught off guard. Bitch Boy was cornered by the press after the Senate had done what they had done, because if you heard yesterday's hearing or debate in the House, everybody was saying amendment. Well, the initial document protected the names of survivors. It protected them. So any redactions under the guidelines in the discharge petition, now law that needs to be signed by the president, has been addressed. So what the Republicans kept trying to do to say, we just want to make sure that nobody who might be innocent, nobody fucking cares. If people are connected to these things, let them explain it for themselves. That's not on us. If you're connected to this thing, and this is something that's been talked about for a long time now, and you've not gone out and gone public with your statement, then that's on you. That's on you. And by the way, the Attorney General does have discretion based on the language that they find, whether it be CSAM. Remember, CSAM would be child sexual abuse material, CSAM, or pornography. So this was Mike Johnson, Bitch Boy, when he was pressed. This is after the Senate voted unanimous consent to sign it into law.
I just spoke to the president about that. We'll see what happens.
So do you think he may veto it? You say you spoke to the president?
Hang on one second. Let me start from the beginning. Here we go.
Leader Thune, you seeing the bill without adding amendments or changing it?
I am deeply disappointed in this outcome. I think it's a state dinner.
Can you imagine, first of all, I ignored that the first time. Can you imagine saying something like that? I'm deeply disappointed in this decision. It is veto proof. I'm sorry. I'm deeply disappointed in this decision. By the way, and I've got a little bit of behind the scenes story that I'm going to read for you regarding Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie, who were the ones that initially sponsored the bill. They communicated with some of the survivors. They asked them about some of the language that went into that bill, right? So the survivors supported it. So Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, is deeply disappointed? Wow, that says a lot. That really says a lot. So here he is again.
The bill without adding amendments or changing it?
I am deeply disappointed in this outcome. I think it's a state dinner. I don't know. I was just told that Chuck Schumer rushed it to the floor and put it out there preemptive.
Chuck Schumer did not rush it to the floor. There was a conversation between Democratic leadership and Republican leadership that if the bill passed the House, what they do, Chuck Schumer introduced it as unanimous consent. At any point, any Republican could have said no. They didn't. That's why it passed. So again, Mike Johnson, Bitch Boy, continues to lie to you.
It needed amendments. I just spoke to the president about that. We'll see what happens.
So do you think he may veto it? You say you spoke to the president?
I'm not saying that.
Is he supportive of it in its current form?
We both have concerns about it, so we'll see. I was standing there with the Crown Prince.
Are you?
Okay, so he said we both have concerns. Really? Okay. So the president came out with a statement on Live Social last night. This was before the Senate voted. So I've not seen a new statement this morning, but we'll track it. Okay, this was yesterday. This was last night. I don't care When the Senate, I'm sorry, I have to do this. I know y'all love it. I don't care when the Senate passes the House bill, whether tonight or at some other time in the near future. I just don't want Republicans to take their eyes off of all the victories that we've had, including the great big beautiful bill. Closed borders, no men and women's sports or transgender for everyone, ending DEI, stopping Biden's record-setting inflation, biggest tax and regulations cut in history, stopping 8 wars, rebuilding our military, being respected by every country in the world, having trillions of dollars invested in the USA, having created the hottest country anywhere in the world, and even delivering a huge defeat to the Democrats on the shutdown. Make America great again. That was one fucking sentence. So, I don't care when the Senate passes the House bill. So, the president's either lying or Mike Johnson's lying to say that they both have concerns. Okay? So, here's the weird part about this. Politically speaking, I don't know. Hang on, I just got a text from the daughter. Hang on one second. Okay, apologies. I'm trying to think about this. So from a constitutional perspective, from a political perspective, the president's got 3 options, right? He can sign it, and it becomes a law immediately. He can veto it, but based on the votes that we saw, it's veto proof. 290 in the House and 66 in the Senate, so it's veto proof. Or he can just not do anything, and it becomes a law anyway. Those are his only options. So what do you do, right? And we're going to talk about this, this sanitizing of the documents. This story goes back to July or March, when the DOJ was tasked with going through the documents that they have in their possession. And here's another way you can dunk on your MAGA friends when they try to tell you, it's under seal. Then you can just remind them, well, what about the documents that had already been released? Because the Department of Justice already trickled some documents out into the public sphere so that they can lose that argument as well, right? So we'll get into some of that in just a minute. But what happens? So it's almost like the veto, go back and forth on this. Is the veto worse than the documents coming out? I don't know. I'll allow you guys to think about that. I'm curious. So what in the chat if you think the veto is worse? I'm curious of what people think about that. Because it's a flex, right? You can certainly say, yeah, I think the veto is worse too. Yeah, I would agree. Weird is the Democrat taking money from Epstein. Trigger, this again, here's the desperation. You guys, you see what I mean? This is the desperation. This is the desperation. We don't care. I mean, the story with Stacey Plaskett, she's got some explaining to do. There's no doubt about it. I don't care who it is. Why is it that people on the right don't understand that yet? I think I know why. I think it's because you think that we hold our politicians to the same, like they have divine status in our world. They don't. They work for us. We don't give a fuck. We don't idolize them. We don't worship them. We don't buy their merch. We don't fucking bob the fascist knob, so to speak. We hold people accountable. Why can't you all? Every time this comes up, oh, Clinton, we don't give a fuck. Oh, Larry Summers, we don't give a fuck. Oh, the Stacey Platt, we don't give a fuck. We don't fucking care. We do not care. So just you can continue to spew your nonsense, but none of us give a shit. Yeah, I heard that as well. Massey said if it isn't signed by Trump, that he's going to read the names of all the people that are in the file. I don't know if that's the case, but anyway, we don't give a shit. So stop with this stupid ass argument that you think it's going to be a flex. I'm going to talk about Larry Summers in just a second. So my prediction is the president signs it, and I think we can draw a logical conclusion that these documents have been sanitized. The issue now, though, because one of the things that the Republicans had wanted to do is to allow for some redactions, right? So I'm going to read you the story of the sort of the behind the scenes that was being worked on between Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey. Before I do that, let's just talk about I summarize this for you guys. So This is what can be released. Because now this bill, will he use the auto pen? He might. Who knows? All right, this is what's in it. This is what can be released. All unclassified records, communications, and investigative materials related to Epstein and his convicted co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, the classified piece is interesting because I don't know how classification processes work, but we're smart. So what would, unless it's national security, why would things need to be classified? Right? It's just weird. So is that the argument they're going to use? Well, they address that because there needs to be explanations as to why certain things are considered classified. Okay? So again, all unclassified records, communications, and investigative materials related to E and his convicted co-conspirators, materials related to individuals, including government officials who were named or referenced within the criminal acts, settlements, and plea agreements. That's a big one. Government officials. Details about any entities with ties to E trafficking allegations or financial networks. Details and investigative materials surrounding Jeffrey's death, and internal DOJ communications about Jeffrey and his associates. That is what's in the bill. That is what can be released. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, has to justify decisions she makes regarding redactions. Okay? Well, that wouldn't be classified. That's a redaction. Protecting the names of innocents wouldn't be classified. That would be redactions. Classified would be none of this information can come out, and it would have to carry a classified distinction. Okay? And this goes back to, again, the hypocrisy connected to this about classification of materials, because the MAGA claimed that the president can just declassify anything he wants, which justified him stealing government documents regarding the Mar-a-Lago documents case. So they're in another tough spot because they can say, well, he can't declassify it. Well, he could declassify these things. Well, that's different. Of course it is. So what can't be released, according to the Epstein Transparency Act, victims, survivors' names, medical files, and identifying information. CSAM, which is child sexual abuse materials, any information that, quote, would jeopardize an active federal investigation or prosecution. We'll get back to that in a second. Images of death, abuse, or injury, and then again, classified information. So the active investigation piece, it's interesting, right? Because if the game all along, and I'm trying to game this out a little bit. If the game all along has been to say, okay, well, we're just going to let this happen because we are getting overwhelmed. 67% of people who are Republicans polled. This is according to a Gallup and CNN poll recently. 67% of people polled that are Republicans are disappointed in the way the president has handled this, which is exactly why the votes went the way that they did yesterday. Because up until now, MAGA Republicans and Trump supporters and people who align with the president in the House and in the Senate have always had the cover of public support. Now they don't. Now they don't. So nearly 70% of Republicans are saying you haven't handled this well. So that tells them that, like, oh boy, we've got to distance ourselves from the president, which is why Mike Johnson was caught a little bit off guard in the statement that I played for you earlier. We're disappointed. You're disappointed in what exactly, Mike? Care to explain? So that's part of the the mess that they're in. So back to the initial statement. Will he sign it? I think he likely has to sign it. Because you can't spin this if you veto it. You really can't. I think he has to sign it. And then that brings up the story of how much this information has been sanitized. The challenge that they're going to face, if that is obviously what's happened, because there's no possible way they can go to the public and say the only names that are in here are Democrats. It is veto proof. Yes, I know it's veto proof. That's kind of my point. There's no possible way that's ever going to fly. You can't claim Larry Summers. You can't go back to this word cloud that was created by the Washington Post or the New York Times. They took this is the entire of the emails that were released to the Oversight Committee. Each dot is an email thread released by the Oversight Committee. Okay, this is how many times Bill Clinton appeared, 512. This is how many times Larry Summers appeared, 117. And this is how many times Donald Trump appeared, 1,670. So they cannot go into this saying that it's only Bill Clinton, it's only Larry Summers, and ignore this. That's why I think that they're stuck. And like we've said from the beginning, they cannot run from this, you guys. They can't. There's just no way. They can't run from it. So we'll see. The decision could come as early as this morning. Excuse me. Yesterday, I think we will go down in history. November the 18th, 2025, as a very interesting day politically, one to be remembered for sure because of what happened. Because all but one representative in the House of Representatives said, we need to see this information. The Senate agreed, and now the president is faced with an impossible decision for his perspective. I sign this, and then I have to explain why certain names have been redacted, or that all of a sudden there's an open investigation after Pam Bondi told us over the summer that the investigation was closed. This is, again, goes to my belief that either there will be a presidential resignation or Donald Trump will be 25th, because the Republican Party cannot legislate. They cannot stand on any level of credibility when they built their entire movement on draining the swamp. Trump went into his administration promising to his voters that I'm your guy. I'm the one that's going to drain the swamp. And then to have this, to have this hanging over your head, every single day you're going to be asked. Every single day you're going to be asked about this. And of course they don't want to talk about it. Just think of the statement that I just read to you guys. I just don't want Republicans to take their eyes off of all the victories that we've had. Right? He can't run from this. The press is going to continue to hound him over this, no matter what decision he makes. If he makes a decision to sign it, and then there's an open investigation saying, oh, sorry, there's an open investigation that you ordered, sir. You told Pam Bondi to investigate Bill Clinton, Reid Hoffman, Larry Summers, JP Morgan Chase. You told them that. So you're going to have to spin your way out of this. Good luck. Speaking of JP Morgan Chase, there was, because they were named in that tweet. Well, they have fired back. JP Morgan Chase hit back at the president's directive to the Department of Justice to investigate the banking giant's involvement with deceased trafficker Jeffrey. This was the post that Trump wrote on Friday. Now that the I'll do this.
Now that the Democrats are using the Jeffrey hoax involving Democrats, not Republicans, to try and deflect from their disastrous shutdown and all their other failures, I will be asking AG Pam Bondi and the DOJ together with our great patriots at the FBI to investigate JE's involvement and relationships with Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, JP Morgan, Chase, and many other people and institutions to determine what was going on with them and with him. This is another Russia scam with all the arrows pointing to the Democrats. Records show that these men and many others spent large portions of their life with Jeffrey and on his island. Stay tuned.
So when you direct your Department of Justice, Pam Bondi, to investigate, that came from him. Pam Bondi told us over the summer that the investigation was closed. There was nothing else to see. There were no records of financial transactions. There was no client list, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? Yeah, I know that those emails, I was going to get to that later, but those emails prove that Russia was absolutely fucking true just because of all the connections to the Kremlin, right? Blowing Bubba, et cetera, et cetera. Anywho, this is where they sit now. So they're in this spot where they've made all these claims. He doesn't want you to look over here. He doesn't want to talk about it. I wouldn't either. And for the amount of people, the amount of people that are defending this guy, it's mind-boggling to me. Do you remember the report that I talked about? There was a poll that was done over the summer. I mentioned it before. It was like a polling polling firm known as Ledger, Leger, where they asked 1,000 Republicans if Donald Trump was implicated in this, more so than what we have in the Jeffrey case, would you still support him? And 47% said yes. So then that reminds me of this recent polling where 67% of Republicans say that they are absolutely disappointed in the way in which he's handled this. That's a big number. But the bigger number is that 33% feel like he's handled it the right way. What? So, anywho, so back to the story. Again, this is JP Morgan Chase pushing back because of the statement the president had made. Last month, Jamie Raskin sent a letter to JP Morgan Chase as well as to Deutsche Bank, Bank of America, and Bank of New York Mellon, writing, quote, can JP Morgan Chase and company, JP Morgan, help Congress understand how Jeffrey, Ghislaine, and their co-conspirators were able to use your bank and others to conduct more than $1.5 billion in suspicious financial transactions to operate their international trafficking ring for years without ever being caught. New York Times reported that JP Morgan Chase did, in fact, alert the government to suspicious banking behavior just weeks after J.E.'s passing, when Donald Trump was president the first time. The report flagged tens of millions of dollars of potentially suspicious transactions involving Jeffrey and prominent Wall Street and business figures. The Times added that the nature of the transactions as well as Jeffrey's role in them is unclear. As a reminder, MAGA. This information from JP Morgan Chase, they alerted the Department of Justice. That's their responsibility under the law during the Trump administration, and nothing was done with that information. There was no open investigation. Jeffrey Epstein had passed away. They alerted, JP Morgan Chase did what they're supposed to do, and they alerted the federal government. The federal government at that time was the Trump administration. Now, like we always say, we want the information. We don't care. I'm going to rephrase that. We do care who's in it. We don't care what happens to them. We care because it's about the survivors. It's about the women. It's about the girls at the time. And I'm going to share something other. I can't promise today's not going to be triggering, but there's some things that I'm going to talk about and I'm going to try to make it as less triggering as possible, but I can't promise that. So I'll just say blanket trigger warnings for today's show, but I'll do my best to try to get through it. Anywho, JP Morgan has pushed back, okay? Dana Bash read the bank statement on Friday's Inside Politics. Quote, the statement says, the government had information about his crimes and failed to share it with us or other banks. We regret any association we had with the man, but did not help him commit any of his heinous acts. We ended our relationship with him years before his arrest on trafficking charges, said Dana Bash. That was JP Morgan's statement. Emails between Jeffrey and Maxwell came to light this week that reportedly mentioned Mr. Trump over 1,500 times, as we just shared, calling him Dirty Donald, who spent hours at Jeffrey's house with one of his teenage victims. Trump admits to no wrongdoing in relationships to Jeffrey. Next week, the House votes. This was last week. So I want think about this for a second. The world's foremost trafficker, Jeffrey, refers to Donald Trump as dirty and one of the worst people he's ever met. Not a decent bone in his body. You know the quotes. Think about that for a second, okay? Think about that. J.E. in quotes, Dirty Donald. But again, MAGA doesn't care. So that's JP Morgan Chase's response. Now I want to, before I get into some of the other stuff I want to get into today, because we're going to go back to visiting Christian nationalism, because from my perspective, a lot of this is connected to that because of just they don't believe that women should have a voice. Never mind believed, they just don't think women should have a voice, period. Do you remember a few weeks back? Let me do this first. Before I get into that, I'm going to do this first. I mentioned earlier that there was some behind the scenes effort going on between Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie in particular. Ro Khanna, the Democrat, Thomas Massie, the Republican. This is reported by the Washington Post. This came out overnight last night. Let me water up here. Everybody keep tapping and sharing. I have a big time cold, so I'm mainlining cold medicine, which is drying me out like crazy. The title of the article on the Washington Post is "Inside the Effort to Force Trump's Hand on Jeffrey." Reps Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna months-long campaign to force the president on the files started with a text. Massie, a Kentucky Republican, and Khanna, a California Democrat, had built a relationship over the years. They often chat on the House floor, and this summer, they teamed up on a failed attempt to use a war powers resolution to limit the president's power to take military action against Iran without congressional approval. At some point, they exchanged cell phone numbers. And when Massie saw Khanna try to use an amendment to force the Justice Department to release the Jeffrey files in July, he had an idea. He realized the maneuver could be successful if it were led by a Republican. Massie figured he and Khanna could take advantage of an arcane legislative procedure known as a discharge petition, which sidesteps House leadership to force a floor vote. Discharge petitions fail. It's like 98% of the time they fail because it has to cross party lines. That's the whole point, right? So that's, first of all, for that to have happened is kind of a big deal. Like, that's why I say yesterday was like an unprecedented day in American political history. Massie texted Khanna. 30 seconds later, Democrat responded, "Let's do it." So Massie figured he and Khanna could take advantage of an arcane legislative procedure known as a discharge petition, which sidesteps House leadership to force a floor vote. Massie texted Khanna. 30 seconds later, the Democrat responded, "Let's do it." Within 24 hours, they introduced their resolution and started gathering the 218 signatures they would need to force a vote on the floor. For the following 4 months, the president and bitch boy, Mike Johnson, worked to block Khanna and Massie's effort. Johnson and Trump failed. And yesterday, the House overwhelmingly approved it with Foghorn Leghorn being the only vote against. This account of the long shot campaign success is based on public records and interviews with 2 representatives. So I'm going to read you how the communication happened. Khanna and Massie have made plenty of enemies during their terms in Congress. Trump had long criticized Massie, who voted against the president's signature tax and spending bill this summer. Quote, "Some people seem to enjoy trying to inflict political pain on their own teammates," Mike Johnson said of Thomas Massie. Khanna has not faced the same blowback within his party over Jeffrey. Democrats have adopted Trump's refusal to release the files as a political talking point that is working. After seeing the issue divide MAGA base, that's an understatement. But Khanna spoke out against his own party as recently as last week when he joined grassroots liberal groups and at least 5 other progressive House Democrats in calling for Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer to step aside. He said his party needs to elect Despite their willingness to buck their own colleagues, Massie and Khanna's bill quickly picked up signatures. Every Democrat signed on, and Massie was soon joined by 3 more Republicans, MTG, Lauren Boebert, Nancy Mace. Trump and the White House pressured all 3 GOP women to take their names off the petition. Lauren Boebert, Nancy Mace, I don't know about MTG. I've not heard her speak publicly about it, but they both have been victims of domestic violence and sexual assault, or both. And I want people to think about that for a second. The president summoned the 2 of them to the Oval Office, or to the Situation Room in the White House, sitting around with cabinet positions, sitting around with members of the cabinet. So white men attempting to pressure women who were victims of, survivors of sexual assault and abuse and domestic violence, and pressured them to change their vote. Just think about that visual, okay? To their credit, they said no. They continued to sign on, and now that's history because the bill's already passed. The trio refused, and the discharge petition had 217 signatures, 1 short of the number needed to force a floor vote. Then, the following week, the government shut down and the House went on break. For more than 6 weeks, Johnson kept the House out of session and refused to swear in Rep. Grijalva, who had won a special election in September. At any point in time over that government shutdown, he could have sworn her in. He lied about it. And did I tell you again that he lied about it? Look who's back. Look who's back, guys. Look who's back. He complains about me every single day, but he's here every single day. Mr. Nice Guy, meet the chat. Chat, meet Mr. Nice Guy. Every day he's here. You love me, you just don't want to admit it. Anyway, the following week, the government shut down, House went on break. Johnson refused to swear her in, even though he could have sworn her in at any time. He violated his own rules. Just before the House voted to end the longest government shutdown on November the 12th, Grijalva took her oath and became the 218th signature on the petition. That Friday, Trump publicly disowned Green, calling her a traitor and withdrawing his endorsement for her, which she doesn't give a shit. I know a lot of creators have been playing some of the sound from MTG. I'm not, because she's still a despicable human being. She's trying to rebrand herself so she can run for higher office, whether it be the Senate or there's talk of her running for the presidency. Okay? So she's still who she is. I'll give her credit for doing her fucking job, but that's it. That's it. That Friday, Trump publicly disowned Green, calling her a traitor and withdrawing his endorsement of her. But Khanna and Massey knew that once the 218 threshold was reached, which again won more than half in the House, names could not be removed from the petition. So they knew that. So they knew going in, once you've signed it, my mic volume is low. Is that better? My mic volume is low? All right, I'm sorry, I turned it up a little bit. My apologies. 50% volume, I'm 50% the volume of other TikToks. Is that any better, guys? Sounds fine in my head. Okay, sounds good. All right. Soon victory seemed within their grasp. On Sunday night, Trump gave in, endorsing their efforts in a social media post. By Monday night, the night before the vote, they were feeling confident. Shortly after 8 p.m., Massey, 54, Khanna, 49, entered Khanna's office laughing en route from a joint TV appearance down the hall. "Can I get you a coffee or something?" Khanna asked Massey as the two walked. They settled on a couch, angled slightly toward each other. Each crossed his left leg out over the right. Each watched the other intently, nodding frequently. They sometimes answered questions in concert. "Are they friends?" Massey. "Oh, Khanna. Yeah, absolutely," Massey finished. "And if he needs me to campaign against him in California," Khanna laughed, "I will campaign for his opponent." Again, politics. They disagree on politics. They came together on something, which proves that if you have a cause that's worth it, then you can come together on something that's important. Okay. Massey splayed across two of the couch's 3 black leather cushions, cowboy hat resting across his khaki-suited knee, palms spread on the leather bed beside him. To his left, Khanna crossed his legs tightly, hands folded on the lap of his Navy suit. Quote, "Thomas is one of the most sincere people, even when you disagree with him," Khanna said. "They think their past experience and shared fearlessness in standing up to their respective party leadership helped their efforts succeed," they said. The next morning, Khanna and Massey started early, 9 a.m. Massey, Khanna, and Green joined more than a dozen survivors of Jeffrey's abuse outside the U.S. Capitol. A crimson sign on the podium read, "Jeffrey Files Transparency Act." Protesters outside the gate waved signs demanding the release of the files. Quote, "Today is the first day of real reckoning for the Jeffrey class," Khanna said. "We fought the president, the attorney general, the FBI director, the speaker of the House, and the vice president to get this win." Again, think about that. Think about those people, the FBI director, the attorney general, the speaker of the House, the president, and the vice president fighting against the release of documents involving the biggest global sex trafficker in our history, in our world. You guys, everything should be fine. Let me do this. I don't know if that's any better, but hopefully it is. I'll move on. Okay. It sounds normal to me. Who the fuck knows? Anyway, we fought the president, the attorney general, the FBI director, the speaker of the House, and the vice president to get this win. But they never, they're on our side today. Sorry. But they're on our side today, though. So let's give them some credit as well. They are finally on the side of justice. I'm not going to give them any credit at all. I'm not going to give them, they being the president, the vice president, the speaker of the House, they don't get any credit from me. Fuck that. None. They've been obstructionists the entire time. Then the 3 lawmakers stepped to the side and listened as survivors and their family members spoke. Massey and Khanna stood next to each other, both in navy blue suits, each with his left hand clasping his right. Some of the women held up photos. This was me at 14. This was me at 17. This was me at 22. Several addressed the president directly, pleading for him to release the files. Quote, "I voted for you, but your behavior on this issue has been a national embarrassment," said Jenna Lisa Jones. "Thank you for defending democracy. Thank you," one man called out as the members walked toward the Capitol after the conference wrapped. He held up a sign that said, "Release the files now." A couple hours later, The House passed the bill 427-1. Clay Higgins. Even Johnson voted for it. After the vote gavel closed, Massey and Khanna turned to face the survivors of the Jeffrey abuse standing in the gallery above them and clapped. The survivors hugged each other, clasped their hands over their hearts, and blew kisses to the members. The Senate then agreed to consider it for legislation. Once it arrived, the Senate voted for it through unanimous consent and it passed. The representatives were gleeful at the prospect. I'm tired of winning, Massey quipped. They warned senators against inserting loopholes that could undermine their effort to reveal additional names or figures involved with the Jeffrey files. Massey and Khanna think their effort will succeed in compelling the release of additional documents, but just how much information is actually revealed they know is in the president's hands. When the Congress acts with robustness and a powerful coalition, the president folds. The question is he going to follow through with justice for survivors or not? Outside the Capitol, lawmakers fielded more questions. There are probably girls and women watching the vote today to see what our government is made of. And it's a good sign, Massey said. Trump just needs to follow through on his promise to sign it. Right? So, that kind of brings us up to where we are now. We're now in a spot where the ball is in the president's court. It's always been that way. It's always been that way. He's always had the ability to do this. And again, this is because when you base everything on a lie and you have all this information at your disposal that you can release and you haven't done it, Congress has now compelled you to do it, even though you could have done it before, and you continue to lie about it. One thing I want to address that keeps coming up that the right just doesn't want to accept because they hear sound bites has to do with the judges that were involved in the release of grand jury testimony. And I want to talk about that specifically, and then we'll continue on our thread here. For those of you who are just joining us, I'm Facts, Steve. Go live Monday through Friday, 8 till noon Eastern time. Please consider joining our team if you haven't already. We are crowd-funded here. Want to support the channel? Best way to do that is through various pay apps at Factsstillmatter, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo. Please consider going to our merch store because any item sold in the merch store this week will go to support a great cause that we are now behind, blackmamasmatter.org. So any and all items sold from the merch store this week, all proceeds will go directly to that cause. And thank you for being here. By the way, we're streaming on YouTube and we're streaming on Twitch. Please consider subscribing to both of those channels as we build our platform bigger. So one of the deflection tactics that the right is attempting to make is that Democrat judges block the release of grand jury testimony. First of all, let's clarify something. A judge that is appointed by a Democratic president does not make them a Democratic judge. Similarly, on the other side, a judge appointed by a Republican does not necessarily make them a Republican judge. So let's clarify that. That's one thing. The issue that the right is having is because these judges were appointed by Democrats, presidents, and because these judges ruled against their Department of Justice, they have been conditioned to think that just because the Department of Justice asks for this information, they have been conditioned to say, well, they didn't give it to us, therefore they're corrupt. That's not how it works. Okay, that's not how it works. These are just talking points that come out that get amplified by right-wing circles. Okay, exactly. And the judges followed the law. So the statements I think are really, really interesting. Judge Paul Engelmeyer on August 11th, U.S. District Judge in New York, denied the motion to unseal grand jury transcripts in the Maxwell case. This is reported by AP. He emphasized that federal law almost never allows public release of grand jury materials and that such exceptions should not be applied casually or promiscuously. He rejected the administration's central argument that the transcripts would reveal, quote, meaningful new information about Jeffrey Maxwell or their investigation, calling that premise demonstrably false. He noted that a person familiar with the case who reviewed the transcripts, quote, would learn next to nothing new because the transcripts did not identify clients, new locations of crimes, new methods, or add to the understanding of the investigation. That is a quote directly from Judge Engelmeyer. Todd Blanche, in his request to get information from these judges, even in the request, he knew that the request did not meet the standards for grand jury testimony to be unsealed. Okay? Bro is just reading an article. No, Daddy Sisson or Diddy Sisson. No, Bro is reading the statement from the judge. Cool. Wow. Judge Richard Berman, on August 20th, 2025, U.S. District Judge Richard Berman rejected the Justice Department's request to release grand jury transcripts in the Jeffrey case. He noted that the government already has around 100,000 pages of Jeffrey investigative materials and that the roughly 70 pages of grand jury transcripts, quote, pales in comparison to that trove. He described the request to unseal the transcripts as appearing to be, quote, diversion from the broader disclosure the government could make. He pointed out that the grand jury testimony consisted of only the testimony of an FBI agent with no direct knowledge of the facts and are mostly hearsay. That's two. Judge Robin Rosenberg, Florida grand jury records, July 2025, Judge Rosenberg rejected the request to unseal transcripts of grand jury investigations from 2005 and 2007 involving Jeffrey. She held that the request did not meet any of the extraordinary exceptions under federal law that enable disclosure of grand jury materials. She emphasized that grand jury proceedings are secret for a reason, and the statutory framework imposes a high bar for public release. That's the full story, okay? That's the full story. So you can continue to try to blame everybody that you want to. I just would like to say this to our MAG in the chat this morning. I want you to remember, okay? In 10 years' time, if you ever have a family, I hope the hell that most of you don't, but if you do, this story will not go away. This will be part of American lore, right? This will be part of American lore, right? You're going to be asked a question, and your social media presence will be captured forever. You'll be asked a question. Where did you sit in this issue? You supported a guy who was named in these files? Are you going to answer honestly? That's a question for you. So when your grandchildren, your nieces and nephews are rummaging around your attic and they find your MAGA hat, and they're going to read about how J.E. and Donald Trump were best buddies, and Donald Trump lied for years about their relationship, and what are you going to do? Peepaw. You mean you defended a predator? Fake news. Okay. So that's the story. All right. Now, I want to get into, hold on, gotta add the puzzle piece here. Just started getting that. I humanized them too much. Yeah, that's probably true. I probably did humanize them too much. So a couple of trigger warnings. I'm going to play some sound. The reason that I'm going to do this is because we can't let the political side of this interfere with the reality of the fact that we know who Donald Trump is. Quit spitting fake news. Andrew, just get the fuck out of here. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. Okay, just leave. Think about this, guys. Again, this is what they do. Everything is fake. Here's the question that you ask them. Do you believe that Bill Clinton and Larry Summers were connected to this? And you know what they're going to say? They're going to say yes. So the same source of information that connects Bill Clinton in whatever capacity to this and Larry Summers to whatever capacity in this, the same information that connects those two also connects Donald Trump. So Summers and Clinton are guilty in your mind, but Trump isn't, even though he appears 10 times more than the two of them combined. So which is it? You can decide. All right, I'm going to play some sound from appearances that Trump has made in the past on Howard Stern. The reason I want to play it is because I don't want people to forget about his history. We know of his criminal conviction or his civil conviction being found civilly liable in defaming and sexually assaulting E. Jean Carroll. We know that. Okay, we know that. They're going to deny it. They're going to make excuses for it. They're going to say she's lying. That's who they are. Okay, I believe women. I believe survivors. Okay, we know that. But don't forget, there's a history there. So I'm going to play this for you. This trigger warnings, but I think it's necessary for people to not forget. Here you go.
daughter is beautiful, Ivanka.
By the way, your daughter.
She's beautiful.
Can I say this? A piece of ass.
Yeah.
The last couple.
First of all, MAGA dads. If somebody went public and said that your daughter is a piece of ass, somebody said, hey, just want to let you know that your daughter is a piece of ass, would you just ignore that? Would you contribute to the conversation like your president did? Most of you would probably say, yeah, whatever. No big deal. No big deal. Okay.
A couple of years I go out with somebody and she's like 21 and she's talking about, what are you doing? And she's studying algebra. And
So what?
And it's like, it was always embarrassing for me to walk in. It's too young. 30 is like a perfect age.
Absolutely. She has enough life experience.
Until she's 35.
Too much life experience.
35. What is it at 35, Howard? It's called checkout time.
And you're probably, I would say, the greatest judge of beauty on this planet. In fact, I would create a team. All you did was just judge women.
Now, that may be the best idea of all.
It's a simple thing. It's a half hour, and we strip it out all over the country.
I would say I'm the all-time judge.
You own this pageant. You go over, you're meeting the girls. It's like one of them comes up to you and says, Mr. You're a very sexy man.
You're a beautiful man. You have fantastic hair.
Well, you're a powerful man. Right? You're a powerful man.
Right.
I want to sleep with you. Now, you're not the type that would say no.
I don't want to hurt their feelings.
Right. No, but I mean, you see a beautiful woman, you want to have that. You're a guy who likes to have everything, right?
Well, couldn't that be construed, however, as
conflict?
Yes.
I don't see it as a conflict.
It could be a conflict of interest, but it's the kind of thing you worry about later.
Oh, I see.
You tend to think about the conflict a little bit later on.
The question is, how can it not be construed?
No, I mean, some of these foreign girls, Mr. Trump, in my country, we say hello with vagina. And
well, you could also say, as the owner of the pageant, it's your obligation to do that.
So you have done that. Now,
I'll tell you the funniest is that I'll go backstage before a show.
Yes.
And everyone's getting dressed and ready and everything else, and no men are anywhere. And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it. I'm inspecting. I want to make sure that
like
everything is good.
You're there.
Yeah, the dress. Is everyone okay? They're standing there with no clothes. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible-looking women, and so I sort of get away with things like that.
So, I know Howard Stern is disgusting too. I'm certainly not defending him. So, how then? And this is the part for most of us that we try to figure out, like, how do Trump supporters square that shit? They just call it locker room talk, right? Don't forget the infamous quote when he was asked, what do you have in common with your daughter Ivanka? And he said sex. And then there's that famous interview that he did with Robin Leach. We talked about his 1-year-old daughter Tiffany, and he's like, she's got her mom's legs. We don't know about these yet. Her daughter was 1 year old. And he was referencing the Miss Teen USA pageant. I can just walk in on them. And people want to just call it weird. See, it just comes down to the basic truth that his supporters and conservative Christians, and which is why we're going to talk about Christian nationalism this morning, just don't care. You don't care. You don't care. And it's gotten so bad. Because now, don't forget the statement that Megyn Kelly made a couple weeks ago now about how, he liked them on the barely legal side. He's not really a pedo because they're 15. It's not like they were 8 or anything. So that's part of their new argument. Yeah, Katie Johnson, 13 and 12. That's part of their new argument. That's part of their new defense that's been going on this entire time, right? It's going to be fun. Quick question for you. Can I ask you a question?
Yes. What's going on?
Get out of here. Yeah, anyway. Remember that famous statement that was made by Megyn Kelly No, you're out of here. You're not going to come up here. You're just a piece of shit. Get out of here. Titty says, nobody cares about anything you have to say. You can go find somebody else who might platform you, but I'm not going to. You're a piece of shit. When she talked about the 15 years old, at least he's not a predator, or at least he's not a P3DO or whatever else, whatever argument you want to make. Well, I share that with you because that is literally a new approach that the right is trying to attempt to make because they know how bad the information that they have that hasn't even come out yet, how bad it is. So much so that Fox News, I don't know if a lot of people noticed this, but it caught my eye. The other day, they had a poll, and this was the poll they put up. Would you like to leave America? Women aged 15 to 44. Now, they throw men in here to try to justify it. You are not a woman at 15. You're a girl. You're not a man at 15. You're a boy. This is their strategy now. This is what they're going to attempt to do. This infantilizing people. This is how they're going to try to spin their way out of this. First of all, I doubt this is a Gallup poll. It says Gallup. I don't think it's a Gallup poll. You can't poll people who are minors. This is what they're doing now, and they just put it up there, right? They would just put it up there like it's no big deal. Have you ever seen a poll like that before? The answer is no. You don't poll people that are 15 years of age. They're minors. It's against the law. This is the approach they're taking because the administration and even people on Fox in their safe spaces believe the same thing, that women and girls are property. That's how they view women and girls, as property. So they don't think, 15, whatever, 15 years old, who gives a shit? I saw a video that Dean had someone in his live the other day, somebody saying, tell me what's wrong with child grape. This guy was like, yeah, I don't understand what's wrong with it. Why don't you tell me what's wrong with it? And Dean was like, are you fucking kidding me? This is the issue, right? I saw this. I'm like, are you kidding me? You're trying. The poll's got nothing to do with anything other than would you like to leave the country? It's this. Women, 15 to 44. Men, 15 to 44. Neither a woman at 15 nor a man at 15. I just want people to not forget that, okay? Because that's the argument they're attempting to make now. What's worse is how do I say this? The hypocrisy. Do you remember a few weeks back, the entire young Republicans in that group text thread that blew the cover off of we already knew, the Yahtzees in their party? Excuse me, sorry. The bona fide Yahtzees that are in their party? Well, that has not gone well for them at all because their hypocrisy and their contradictions are showing up again. You remember that J.D. Vance was the guy who was targeted to go out there and try to solve the problem for everybody. So J.D. Vance said this about that group of people.
Playing the messages.
I really don't want us to grow up in a country where a kid telling a stupid joke, telling a very offensive stupid joke, is cause to ruin their lives. And we're not canceling kids because they do something stupid in a group chat.
In an earlier post, Vance says he refuses to, in his words, join the pearl clutching, saying what's far worse are the violent text messages that have upended Virginia politics.
Right. So again, here's the statement again from the Vice President of the United States. This is what he said. Listen to this.
President J.D. Vance today downplaying the messages.
I really don't want us to grow up in a country where a kid telling a stupid joke, telling a very offensive stupid joke, is cause to ruin their lives. And we're not canceling kids because they do something stupid in a group chat.
So, just so I'm clear, your defense of people in your party, in many cases, people in your party who are employed by members of your party, and there's one congressional candidate that one of these people in the group chat was connected to, your defense of their Yahtzeeism is to say that they're just kids. JD, you are 1 year older than one of the persons involved in this. They were not kids, but 15-year-old girls are women. So it's convenient to say, "Oh, we don't want to ruin their lives because of something that a stupid kid would have said." But it's okay to refer to girls who were victims of a global sex trafficking ring and who were raped by fucking predator men in your party to call them women. Exactly. Make that make sense. It doesn't. The answer is it doesn't make sense. Okay? So keep that in mind. So I believe the poll is real. I believe the Gallup poll is real. I guess maybe I misspoke about that. I believe that Gallup poll is real, but I don't think it's... I'm going to look more into that, but that was disturbing. Anyway, 35-year-old Republicans can call people, can brag about being Yahtzees, and the vice president of the United States refer to them as his kids. But yet girls, young children, girls raped by people, some of the same people, I'll bet, in the same party, are women. Okay. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page with that. All right. Let me see where I want to go with this next. I covered that. Everybody, please keep tapping and sharing. Thank you all very, very much. Appreciate you. We know that we'll be monitoring the chat to determine when the president signals he's going to sign it. He's been quiet, yes. All right. So somebody talked about Larry Summers, and I'm going to talk about that because, like I said, we don't give a shit. So he has been, there's a couple of statements that he's made. One, he said he was going to, so Larry Summers' name has been all over this thing, a large tranche of internal correspondence. This is reported by The Guardian. Large tranche of internal correspondence between Summers and J.E. was released by the U.S. House Oversight Committee. The emails show that Summers maintained regular communication with Jeffrey well into 2019, even after his 2008 conviction. Among the emails were private and personal discussions. For example, Summers confiding in Jeffrey about pursuing a romantic relationship with a woman he referred to as mentee. Jeffrey, in one message, described himself as Summers' wingman. In response, Summers published a statement saying he is deeply ashamed of his misguided decision to continue communicating with Jeffrey. He announced he will step back from his public commitments while continuing his teaching obligations at Harvard. We'll see about that. Multiple institutions and partnerships are severing or reviewing their ties with him. For example, the New York Times has stated it will not renew his contract as opinion contributor. An internal investigation, Harvard has initiated a formal review of his connections to Jeffrey and other Harvard affiliates implicated in this document. So that's accountability, right? That's accountability. I know. I'm sorry. My throat is killing me. My apologies. It's probably why it sounds weird to people today, because I'm amped up on cold medicine, which I hate taking in general. But anyway, so that's accountability, and we'll see more of this, which is part of the. What's up with that? Oh, here, get out of here. Go. Okay. That's part of the biggest, in my mind, powerful elite people covering for powerful elite people. That's what this is about, right? The people that are connected to these things have just been unchecked. Their power, their corruption, their access to information, everything. It's just been one big piece of cover up over and over and over and over and over again. Okay? No, Vermont didn't get 70 inches of snow. The top of one of our mountains has a lot of snow at Jay Peak, but not down here in the valley. But so more to come, right? More to come on that. So once again, MAGA, here's the thing. I don't want you to forget that you are defending predators, because everything that you say is fake news. It's an attack on Donald Trump. I'm going to play you some sound from Troy Niels. Troy Niels is MAGA through and through. This guy is an absolute clown. I want you to remember that this person, he's from Texas. He's an elected official. He is a member of Congress. We've had enough conversations with MAGA in this chat, and he sounds exactly like they all do. There's no way Trump could have done anything wrong. So I'm going to play this sound for you. Take a little break. I'll be right back.
What do you make of the vote to release the Epstein files today?
We got it done. Now wait till you see all the dishonest media and everybody out there. When Trump's not in it, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? They're going to be whining and complaining about something. They're going to be sitting there conspiring now to figure out, well, if we get the House back, how are we going to impeach the man? What are we're going to have to come up with something else.
You previously
the records were destroyed. They destroyed the records. They're going to come up with something.
You previously said that you wanted to vote no on the Epstein hoax, and then you flipped.
Oh, we all did it. President Trump wants it because it's going to exonerate. It's going to clear him.
Yeah.
So I think he's put this back on the Democrats now. You know, but you know what? If Trump was in it, Joe Biden would have went after him. He'd have indicted him on something, but he didn't do it because there's nothing there. It's the Trump hoax.
What do you make of Trump being mentioned in the latest trove of Epstein files more than anyone else?
There's 65,000 pages. Obviously, Epstein did not like Trump too much. He's pretty much in bed with these others. Summers, he's in bed with Clinton. Now, why did Bill and Hillary not want to come up, and we subpoenaed them, not want to come up and testify? Why not? It's a big cover-up. You know what's so interesting about it? It's all the Democrats. The Democrats that are tied to Larry Epstein, to Epstein. It's Epstein, the Democrats. It's not Donald Trump. And you guys keep spinning this crap. Why do you do that? I said last night to CNN, you guys owe him an apology. You're going to owe Donald Trump an apology for what you guys have done. I put out a post about the Epstein files. I got 12 million views. And when you go through the thousands of comments, now there are a lot of nut jobs in this country, quite honestly, but they're all calling Donald Trump a pedophile. There's no evidence out there that's going to say Donald Trump was a pedophile. If Donald Trump was a pedophile, he'd have been indicted for something. And previous administrations that despise him, like Joe Biden, what about Biden? All of them, they didn't do anything. They have nothing. Matter of fact, if Kamala Harris would be president today, we wouldn't be talking about that Epstein. We won't be talking about Epstein.
What do you make of Donald Trump's birthday note to Jeffrey Epstein?
That was
very friendly
and
seems to suggest.
Since sliced bread, and is why we continue to win.
Wow.
There's going to be smoke. There's going to be smoke and fight, and you're going to spin the truth. You're going to tell downright lies.
Wow. Is the note a lie?
Lies.
Is the birthday note a lie?
About Donald Trump, and it's shameful.
Is the birthday note a lie?
Some of you guys should get counseling. You need help.
Wait, was the birthday note a lie?
You should get counseling.
Was the birthday note a lie?
I believe if you probably got some health insurance, I mean, we got to fix the health insurance, but there's probably some provisions in that health insurance that you guys could get some therapy. You guys need therapy. Go talk to a therapist.
Was the birthday note a lie? Was the birthday note a lie?
You need therapy.
Could you explain what exactly was a lie?
So that's Troy Nehls, Nehls. He is an elected member of Congress. He represents Texas. To listen to that is like listening to some of the worst MAGAs that get platformed around TikTok. I've already explained to you the judge's decisions connected to the grand jury testimony. We know why information wasn't released during the Biden administration because the court because there was still an active investigation. Actually, no, there was the appeals process for Ghislaine Maxwell was happening. That is an elected member of the House. Okay? It is mind-boggling to me. Mind-boggling that people will go to that extreme to try to defend this guy. It doesn't surprise me anymore. It still just blows me away when it happens. His name is Troy Nehls. Anybody represented by Mr. Nehls in Congress? I think he's in Texas' 2nd congressional district. Anybody? I don't know, but you know what to do. That's crazy, right? So speaking of Texas, because I think it's really, really important that we since I wanted to segue into this, I don't know if you heard the news, but let's back up in time. Earlier this summer, Donald Trump basically demanded that Greg Abbott find him 5 more congressional seats out of the state of Texas. He wanted them to violate the law, illegally gerrymander, and basically create 5 districts that would be advantageous to Republicans. Well, guess what happened? A federal court ordered Texas yesterday to throw out its redrawn map. for the 2026 election after finding it constituted an illegal racial gerrymander. The 2-1 order by 3-judge panel, a Trump appointed judge, by the way, casting the tie-breaking vote, is a significant setback for the Republicans after they pushed through an unusual redistricting of Texas congressional seats to insulate their slim House majority ahead of next year's midterms. President Trump openly urged Texas state lawmakers to adopt a new congressional map in order to help the party's prospects in Washington. Democratic lawmakers responded by fleeing the state in what was ultimately an unsuccessful attempt to deny Republicans a quorum. Eventually, I think it was successful, actually, because it shined a light on it. However, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton wrote that he would appeal the order to the U.S. Supreme Court. He criticized what he called partisan gerrymandering in Democratic-led states, including California, Illinois, and New York. He added that he expects the Supreme Court to, quote, uphold Texas's sovereign right to engage in partisan redistricting. So people don't understand the difference between what Texas did and what California did. And we know how angry the Trump administration is because Pam Bondi has said they're going to sue the state of California for racially gerrymandering their districts. Okay? That's what they're going to sue them for. This court, this lower appeals court, told Texas, you guys literally did this without any say from your voters. Other states around the country, Indiana, President Trump criticized Indiana because they don't have the votes to do it. So this entire thing is going to backfire on the Republicans more than they could have ever thought. First of all, there were the seats, the districts that they redistricted in Texas to try to make this happen were pretty safe Republican-leaning seats. They created a contest. They created a situation where those seats may have become more competitive. Now they've lost the plot. Now they have lost the plot. What was predicted to be a 20 to 25 seat swing for Democrats all of a sudden becomes large. But what does that mean that you have to do? That means that you have to get out there and you have to vote. You can't let anything slide. You can't take any assumptions. California asked their voters. Their voters approved it. Their voters approved it. The voters said, okay, here's the plan. We have an independent redistricting commission, which, by the way, I support. I think that there should be a constitutional amendment or a law that every single state, with the exception of like Maine and Wyoming, because we only have one congressional district, that there's only one. It's the state. There should be a federal law that every state has an independent redistricting commission, and you only redistrict every 10 years as a result of the census. Period. That's it. What California said to their voters is to say, okay, we have an independent redistricting commission. What we are proposing is that for the next two elections, 26 and 28, we create a map that allows us to draw it at the voters' choice. Once these elections are over, we'll go back to the independent redistricting commission. And the California voters said 65%, whatever the number was, 65% said, yes, we agree. That's how democracy is supposed to work. So, and then the Trump administration, because every single step along the way, it's blown up in their face. We're going to get a court ruling at some point today on the tariff situation. But that's huge news. So Troy Niels, I don't know where he is, if he's in one of those safe districts, but people in Texas, you're voting for that guy? That guy who is so far up Trump's ass, he found J.D. Vance's ring. It's wild. I missed the cue. He's so far up Donald Trump's ass, he found J.D. Vance's ring. I'm here all week. So that's a good story for democracy. Really good story for democracy. It tells us everything that we need to know, right? About the only possible way Republicans can even attempt to win elections is by cheating. That's it. And now their plan to cheat is even backfiring. So that leaves the president with very few options. Civil unrest, martial law, declarations of war, all this kind of shit. So, yeah. So we've painted the picture as to what to expect today. We know that Larry Summers is going to resign positions. Harvard's likely going to kick him out. They can't carry that. They can't hold on to that. I don't give a shit if it's Hakeem Jeffries. There's reporting that that there was monies, or the Hakeem Jeffries, either his campaign, either accepted donations from JE or solicited donations. Lock his ass up too if there's crimes here. Stacey Plaskett, I don't care. Okay, I don't care. I want the investigation. I'm not saying that either of them are guilty of any crimes. I don't like the fact that there's an affiliation there, and I want it investigated. None of us, we all should want that investigated. That's why 427 members of the House, whoever the number was yesterday, voted for this. There were non-voting members. That could just be attendance. They just may not have been there. So I want everybody, anybody and everybody, for people to explain themselves. I want people to go on the record. I want people to take an oath. I want them to appear in court, if not in Congress, to explain it to me, to explain it to all of us. Okay? So that's that. Before we get into the more breakdown of the Christian nationalist takeover of our country, let me just check one thing real quick here. Yeah, that's Troy. You're right. Oop. I'm getting a lot of feedback. That's the issue. That's the issue right there. Okay. That sounds better to me. All right. One second, guys. Give me a second. Okay. All right. Yesterday in the Oval Office, for real, you're so funny, you're so cute. Yesterday in the Oval Office, the president invited Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Now, the last time that MBS appeared in the Oval Office was during the first Trump administration. This guy is not somebody that you necessarily want hanging out in the Oval Office. And I want to remind people of a few things. MBS has been linked to the unaliving of Jamal Khashoggi, who was an American journalist working for the New York Times, I believe, who was in the process of getting his citizenship. Okay? Whose children are U.S. citizens. That guy, all right? A week prior, so they talk about the Saudi government being sponsors of terror. And that's true. We know that to be true. A week earlier, our president had a sit down in the Oval Office with Syrian President al-Shara, who was an actual jihadist, who used to lead a al-Qaeda faction in Iraq, who was part of a beheading campaign for American soldiers who served there. And he did that meeting on Veterans Day in the Oval Office in back-to-back weeks. And people on the right are afraid of Zohran Mamdani. People on the right are concerned that Zohran Mamdani, the communist, even though they don't know what it is, they've referred to him as a jihadist. When you had actual jihadists in the Oval Office. Here's the interview, and this is treason, as far as I'm concerned. Treason. So I'll play the sound for you, and then we can discuss it.
Mr. President, is it appropriate, Mr. President, for your family to be doing business in Saudi Arabia while you're president? Is that a conflict of interest? And Your Royal Highness, the U.S. intelligence concluded that you orchestrated the brutal murder of a journalist. 9/11 families are furious that you are here in the Oval Office. Why should Americans trust you? And the same to you, Mr. President.
Now, who are you with?
I'm with ABC News, sir.
You're with who?
ABC News, sir.
Fake news.
Okay. So before we continue the rest of the interview, that's the defense now, right? If you don't like the question that's being asked, if you feel uncomfortable by having to answer a tough question through journalism, his answer is fake news. It used to work. It used to work really, really well. He was able to convince millions of people that it's all fake. It's not working. It's not working like it used to work. There are still people out there, MAGA loyalists, the 47% that don't give a fuck. Even if he's raping kids, they don't seem to care. But it's not working like it used to. So here we go.
ABC fake news, one of the worst in the business. But I'll answer your question. I have nothing to do with the family business. I have left, and when I've devoted 100% of my energy.
Donald Trump's personal wealth has doubled since he became the president on January 20th, 2025. His personal wealth has doubled.
Family does is fine. They do business all over. They've done very little with Saudi Arabia, actually. I'm sure they could do a lot. And anything they've done has been very good. That's what we've done. We've built a tremendous business for a long time. I've been very successful. I decided to leave that success behind and make America very successful. And I've made America more successful by far than it ever was, and that it ever could have been, no matter who was president. There would be nobody bringing in $21 trillion, that I can tell you right now. As far as this gentleman is concerned, he's done a phenomenal job. You're mentioning some...
Okay. A slight pause. MBS has done a phenomenal job. Remember that statement, okay?
Somebody that was extremely controversial. A lot of people didn't like that gentleman that you're talking about. Whether you like him or didn't like him, things happen.
Controversial. Defending MBS, who the CIA and other intelligence agencies know that he's responsible for the unaliving, the butchering, the decapitation and dismembering of, F1 in the chat, of Jamal Khashoggi. And our president, who is the president of the United States, Jamal Khashoggi's children were born in the U.S., therefore they are citizens. He calls Jamal Khashoggi controversial, and that person is the one to blame. But MBS, sponsor of terror, he's done great things. Okay.
But he knew nothing about it, and we can leave it at that. You don't have to embarrass our guest by asking a question like that.
Just you ask, Mr. President, you allow me to answer. You know, I feel painful about, the families of 9/11 in America, but, we have to focus on reality. Reality based on CIA documents and based on a lot of documents that Osama bin Laden, he used Saudi people in that event for one main purpose, is to destroy this relation, to destroy the American-Saudi relation. That's the purpose of 9/11. So whoever buying that means they are helping Osama bin Laden's purpose of destroying this relation. He knows that strong relation between America and Saudi Arabia, it's bad for extremism, it's bad for terrorism. And we have to approve him wrong and to build our relation and continue developing our relation. It's critical in the safety of the world. It's critical against extremism and terrorism. About the journalists, it's really painful to hear, anyone that been losing his life for, no real purpose or not in a legal way. And it's been painful for us in Saudi Arabia. We've did all the right steps of investigation, etc. in Saudi Arabia, and we've improved our system to be sure that nothing happened like that. And it's painful and it's a huge mistake, and we are doing our best that this doesn't happen again.
Mr. President.
I don't even think disturbing is enough to categorize how that went down. That is the American president. Saudi Arabia has a lot. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you, Sam. Saudi Arabia has a lot of explaining to do, and they've never given the answers that they should have. Every time Donald Trump has relationships like this, it's always about dollars and cents. 9/11 families are disgusted by the fact that MBS was sitting in the Oval Office. Families and veterans who've served. Our friend Gunny, you guys know Gunny. I saw him do a video. He was in Iraq at the time that al-Sharaa was an al-Qaeda leader who was a jihadist who was organizing anti-American campaigns that involved beheading American soldiers. Those two people have been in the Oval Office the past 2 weeks. Is that America first? Once again, we know that MAGA will just defend it. They'll just be like, well, it's all about got to have global relationships. Can you imagine? By the way, didn't come to the Oval Office during the Obama administration, came during the first Trump administration. He didn't come to the Oval Office during the Biden administration. He came again during the Trump administration. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if Joe Biden had sat down with MBS and said the exact same things that Donald Trump had said? There would be firing squads at the gate. How is that America first? How? Yeah, Biden fist bumped him there was a global summit. But bad enough. I didn't like the fact that Joe Biden did that. See how easy that is to criticize your leaders? Everything that Trump does is about enriching his brand. To say what you said, then there's the quiet piggy comment he made on Air Force One about an American journalist, a woman. Right? Quiet piggy. This is who you are, MAGA. This is who you are. You don't care about your country. You don't care about your children. You don't care about women. You don't care about this whole America first mindset. You should be the ones, you patriots, you should be the ones that are the most outraged. Many of you, I know many of you chose to serve. I respect the fact that you made a decision to serve. I have no respect for you now because you continue to support this guy. Many of you made the decision to serve after 9/11. Saudi-sponsored, funded terrorism with Osama bin Laden that led to 9/11. There's no doubt about that. And here you are. Where is your criticism today? You're fucking silent. Where the fuck is your criticism today? You're silent. Sitting in the people's house, our house. You chose to serve your country because of what happened on 9/11. Many of you will have a never forget bumper sticker on your truck, next to your truck nuts, or a 9/11 or a never forget flag, never forget flag. You'll have that. But yet, no criticism here? You can't criticize this? It is so fucking pitiful. Where the fuck is your character? Why are you not? You guys should be more pissed off than anybody. That's why we call you oath-breaking traitors. You chose to put your hand up and swear an oath to the Constitution because of what happened. Yeah, I'm going to play that sound next. He's also selling them F-35s. Where is your anger? There's enough of you in here. I've seen you trolling. I'd like you to defend it. Oh, because nobody's perfect, but the whole transgender for everybody and men and women's sports.
Because that gives it a better.
Yep. And this is a precursor to this meeting. This was leading up to this. He's asked another question about the military-industrial complex.
Arabia, tomorrow you're hosting Saudi Arabia. Are you planning to sell F-35s to Saudi Arabia?
Yeah.
And also, are you looking at doing a similar security agreement like you did with
Yeah, no, I am planning on doing that.
You're going to
they want to buy it.
F-35s?
They've been a great ally. They've got to like us very much. Look at the Iran situation, what we did in terms of obliterating, we obliterated their nuclear capability. Yeah, I will say that we will be doing that. We'll be selling F-35s. Yeah.
We cool with that, everybody? You guys cool with that? First of all, he sounds awful. You guys all right with that? You're fine. You're fine doing that. You're fine with having a former jihadist, al-Shara, Syrian president now, who just, a month ago was on the FBI's most wanted list, $10 million bounty out for him. You cool with that? You cool with him being in the Oval Office on Veterans Day? You cool with that? You cool with MBS? I'm going to read you a little bit about MBS's history in case you forgot, MAGA, because you guys don't seem to care. Saudi Arabia is known for their human rights and civil rights violations, including the degradation of women. That's just, Well, during his term, the CIA and other global intelligence agencies concluded that MBS personally ordered the unaliving of journalist Jamal Khashoggi inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, Turkey. Khashoggi was suffocated, dismembered, and the operation was carried out by the Tiger Squad, a group linked directly to the Crown Prince. That guy. The guy that just was sitting in the Oval Office shaking hands and laughing with our president. Crackdowns on women's rights and activists. Prominent activists as Lujan Al-Hathul, Samar Badawi, and Nassima Al-Sada. I probably butchered those names. I apologize. They were arrested. They were held incommunicado. They were subjected to torture, including electric shock and SA, and then sentenced under terrorism laws. Some were released but remained banned from travel or remain under 24/7 surveillance. This is all under MBS. The guy that's sitting in the Oval Office yesterday. The guy that we're going to be selling F-35s to. The guy who Donald Trump's family has been enriching themselves as a result of. Okay. Mass arrests of clerics, dissidents, and public figures. MBS carried out sweeping arrests of moderate clerics, media personalities, intellectuals, business leaders, members of the royal family in the 2017 Ritz-Carlton anti-corruption purge. Any of that sound familiar? Media personalities, intellectuals, business leaders who are in disagreement with him. Okay. The Yemen war and humanitarian catastrophe. As Minister of Defense, MBS launched the Saudi-led intervention in Yemen. Document violations include bombing of markets, weddings, school buses, hospitals, blockades causing famine-like conditions, use of cluster munitions, which are outlawed by the Geneva Convention, civilian toll estimated in the hundreds of thousands. UN described Yemen as the world's worst humanitarian crisis. Under MBS's thumb. The guy that was laughing with your president yesterday in the Oval Office. The guy that we're selling F-35s to. The guy who's state-sponsored funding Al-Qaeda and in their role in 9/11. You guys good with that? Everybody fine with that? Is this fake news too? Okay. Extreme sentences for social media posts. Salma al-Shahab sentenced to 34 years in prison for tweets supporting activists. Sound familiar? Mana al-Qatani sentenced to 23 years for posts deemed critical of the state. Okay. Several 2022 to 2024 cases where individuals were given decades-long sentences for what many considered to be mild dissent. Government uses the specialized criminal court, the anti-terror law, and cybercrime law to justify their incarcerations and to crush online speech. Continued executions, even for minor or political offenses. Under MBS, Saudi Arabia has repeatedly set or neared record Xing numbers, including mass Xings of 37 people in 2019 and 81 people in 2022. Those include minors at the time of the alleged offense, despite international law. Saudi Arabia has been linked to Pegasus spyware, hacking dissidents abroad, covert Twitter infiltration in between 2015 and 2020, tracking activists' families, online troll armies. MBS has pursued modernization, entertainment, and economics, but paired with it, wider and more aggressive repression, high-profile extrajudicial killings, extreme criminal sentences, increased executions, international law violations in Yemen, etc., etc., etc. That's the guy. Good morning, everybody. That's the guy. That's the guy that was sitting with our president yesterday. Okay. Okay. That's the guy that our president said, hey, he's doing great things. What on that list of things that I just read is great? What on that list of things that I just read to you is great? Well, it's great if you believe in, I don't know, unaliving your citizens under mass executions and or continue to violate human rights and civil rights. It was a very sad day for our country yesterday. Very sad day for that to happen. And just as a reminder, because I think it's important to understand that he was touted as this, trying to change the face of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia's human rights problems go back long before MBS. absolute monarchy, religious establishments, lack of codified civil laws, criticism of government, royal family, or religious authorities has been criminalized for decades. Broad charges such as undermining natural unity, insulting Islam, cybercrime, independent media essentially does not exist. The state controls major outlets. Sound familiar? Women's rights. Women were subject to strict male guardianship laws, controlling travel, education, and healthcare. Women could not drive. Gender segregation was mandatory in most public schools. Torture and coerced confessions have been persistently documented by Human Rights Watch and by Amnesty International. High rate of capital punishment, often after secret or summary trials. Executions for nonviolent offenses, drug crimes, sorcery. Saudi Arabia practices strict Wahhabi Sunni Islam and has historically persecuted Shia Muslims, non-Muslims, and public worshiping banned. That's the guy. That's the guy that your president, MAGA, defended yesterday in the Oval Office. That guy, on the same day that the American public, represented by members of Congress and the Senate, said, Mr. President, you are all over the Epstein files. We would like you to sign this so that we can get the truth. That guy, America First. And again, a week before, on Veterans Day, in the Oval Office, laughing and joking around. Remember, he asked President Chirac how many wives he had. And everybody laughed. They thought that was funny. Al-Chirac, a bona fide jihadist, leader of an al-Qaeda sect in Iraq during the Iraqi war, part of a plan to American soldiers. That was a week ago. You okay with that, MAGA? Is that your America First? How will you defend it? What will you say? Well, he's cutting deals. Okay. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. Before I play the sound for you guys that I want to get into today, because I wanted to kind of pick up the pieces. First of all, thank you to Alexa for supporting your community. Thank you, Alexa. It's my pleasure. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so very, very much. Also, thank you to I don't think I got Linda yesterday. Thank you, Linda, for your kind contribution on the Blue app. Appreciate you very much. Linda said for helping us make sense of all the chaos. I appreciate that. You're very, very kind. And thank you to Sienna. I don't think it's Sienna. Sana maybe for starting the $2 train. We love you, Facts. I appreciate you saying that. So if you guys want to support the channel, best way to do so is through the various appetizer apps that are out there: Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, all at Factsstillmatter. And as a reminder, any item in the merch store this week, all the proceeds sold from any item in the merch store goes to support a cause that we're now proud to support, which is BlackMamasMatter.org in support of pregnant black women in particular. We learned horrible stories yesterday from our new friend Francis, who's been part of our community now. So thank you. As I mentioned, once you become part of our community, we are like gum on your shoe. You ain't getting rid of us. So that was an amazing conversation. I appreciate that. So if you're thinking about something in the merch store, there's a whole bunch of new items that are in there right now. All the proceeds from the sale of any item this week in the store goes directly to support that cause. So thank you. While all this is going on, right? While all this is going on, these are the things we're going to stay focused on. What we need to know. We're going to be watching what the president does. The Justice Department. Our Justice Department, don't forget, Donald Trump has sued the government for $230 million, right? Because he feels like he was unfairly prosecuted or persecuted. Okay, he'll probably settle, get that paid. Michael Flynn, traitor. Michael Flynn is a traitor. All right, is seeking restitution from the government to the tune of $50 million. Donald Trump's one-time national security advisor is now negotiating a settlement with Trump's Department of Justice, claiming that he was unjustly prosecuted by former special counsel Robert Mueller for lying to the FBI about conversations with a Russian official. Michael Flynn lied to the FBI about his communications with a Russian official during the Trump campaign, part of Russia. He flat out lied to the FBI, got charged, got convicted, went to jail, got pardoned. Okay? That's the history. Flynn initially pled guilty and then fought the prosecution, eventually receiving a pardon from Trump in 2020. Flynn later filed a lawsuit against the government for damages, only to have a federal judge dismiss the case in December of last year. While the Biden administration fought Flynn's case, the Trump administration seems open to a settlement. Your taxpayer dollars there, ladies and gentlemen. But we can't feed kids. So just those two cases alone, right? $230 million lawsuit from the Trump administration against the DOJ for basically the same thing. You guys should have investigated me even though I did all this shit. $50 million that they want to pay Mike Flynn. That's $300 million. How many kids would that feed? It's probably a lot. But free school lunches is a bridge too far. Or a tax increase of, say, 4 to 5% to guarantee universal health care for everyone is a bridge too far. But you're all okay with what we've gone through this morning with a actual jihadist in the Oval Office on Veterans Day? MBS, we know his history, taking praise from our president while diminishing a person who was, and now $300 million in lawsuits against our government by people who either pled guilty and went to jail and had to be pardoned, or the president himself, who just had his feelings hurt. Okay. That move mirrors Trump's attempt to get $230 million from the DOJ to settle his own claims of politically motivated prosecution. Flynn notoriously lasted only 22 days as Trump's first national security advisor, resigning over his conversations with the Russian ambassador to the U.S. at the time, Sergei Kislyak is, I'm not going to go out on a limb here, but Sergei Kislyak is likely part of the Russian government's role in election interference. We know that. But his ties to the Kremlin bring in somebody else whose name we've been using quite a bit lately, J.E. Since then, Flynn has been one of the leading evangelists of the QAnon conspiracy theory and also has pushed Christian nationalism. If he actually gets his hefty settlement with Trump's approval, it'll show that he's still friendly with the president and the Republican Party, leaving the door open for conspiracy theorists to push their agenda. Nice, right? Nice. You good with that, MAGA? You guys okay with that? $300 million of your taxpayer dollars going to pay restitution for a bona fide fucking traitor. You guys good with that? I just want to make sure. I'm just checking in. I just want to make sure I can take your America First temperature. Is it America First to have a jihadist sitting in the Oval Office? A bona fide one. Is it America First to have MBS, sponsor of terror, financial backers of 9/11 that many of you decided to sign up for? Is that America First? Is it America First to give Michael Flynn $50 million? Because he thought because he could ask? Judges are like, fuck no. Is it America First for the president to sue our Department of Justice under political persecution? Meanwhile, thank you. That's pretty cool. Thank you very much. You guys are awesome. Thank you. I've never seen that before. That was cool. Is that America First? Really? Do any of you have any character or credibility at all when it comes to this shit? Seriously. Do any of you? $300 million? Just in those two instances there? A $400 million Qatari jet? Again, Qatari government, monarchy, also sponsors of terror. Is that fine? But Hunter Biden's cock. And pictures of Hunter with a prostitute. Phew. And Hunter sending pictures. And Joe Biden eating ice cream. Oh yeah, and Vlad. Do you guys Do none of you have any? I mean, how do you explain it? So I'm going to ask you the question. Are you okay with Michael Flynn suing the government, your taxpayer dollars, going to a traitor? You're right, Jess. Tan suit? Exactly. Kamala's laugh? Right. America first, though, right? It continues to get worse and worse for the Trump administration because of their, it's like, are they more corrupt or are they more incompetent? They can be both, but the question is, are they more corrupt or are they more incompetent? Butter emails, exactly. So Lindsay Halligan, I've told you this story before, I meant to get this yesterday. This is not going to end well for her either. So judge says possible errors by Lindsay Halligan could imperil the entire case against James Comey. Remember what I just said. The president suing the Department of Justice, his Department of Justice now, for what he said was targeted political persecution. Meanwhile, he tells Pam Bondi to go and investigate James Comey, Letitia James, and others, which is textbook weaponization of government. Okay? Lindsay Halligan was the person that came in after, I think his name was Eric Siebert, maybe, who was a well-respected U.S. attorney who was on the short list to become the attorney general. All right? He left. He's like, I can't do this. There's no crime here. There's no crime. But he got a lapdog to come in and do it. So in a rare move, the judge ordered prosecutors to hand over records of the grand jury proceedings to the former FBI director's lawyers. A federal magistrate judge says, quote, government misconduct may have tainted the criminal case against former FBI Director James Comey, describing a cascade of apparent errors by lead prosecutor Lindsay Halligan. The magistrate judge, William Fitzpatrick, ordered prosecutors on Monday to quickly turn over records of secret grand jury proceedings to defense attorneys as they seek to dismiss the false statement and obstruction of Congress charges pending against Comey in federal court in Alexandria, Virginia. Quote, the court recognizes this is an extraordinary remedy, Fitzpatrick wrote, but given the factuality-based challenges the defense has raised to the government's conduct and the prospect that the government's misconduct may have tainted the grand jury proceedings, disclosure of grand jury materials under these questions remain necessary. They can't even find a competent person to review these cases. Because to them, it doesn't matter. All they have to do is tell their base. I just got to tell the base we're going to investigate Comey. That'll be fine. Texas redistricting effort blowing up in their face. Now we have Michael Flynn and the president suing the Department of Justice because they got their feelings hurt. And Lindsay Halligan, who I think she never had tried a case in her life. She's like an insurance lawyer, right? Had never tried a case in her life before. One fucking misstep after another. Absolute incompetence. This is who they are. Talk about waste, fraud, and abuse. Yeah, you're right, Nancy. Talk about waste, fraud, and abuse. This is waste, fraud, and abuse. Tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions of dollars. But we'll get the Doge check at some point, right? We'll get the tariff money back at some point, right? Of course we will. Yep, of course we will. Couple more things here, and then we'll get into our. I want to talk about Christian nationalism a bit more because, like I said to start the show, there is a through line for everything that we're seeing now, and where it comes from, what it's rooted in. It's all over Project 2025. The people connected to Project 2025 are self-professed Christian nationalists, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So this was Mr. Trump at this McDonald's summit. This was some wild sound. There's a few things that I'll play for you from that, and then we'll get back to our topic.
Skedaddle. The word skedaddle. And that plane went psh, like this. You know, when it drops a bomb, it goes down very steeply because that gives it a better angle and more speed for the bomb. Very, very heavy bombs, and they go boom. And as soon as those things, the one pilot, the first one said, skedaddle, and that thing just turned in its side, and it's just so.
What? What?
And then they said skedaddle. What? The word skedaddle. And that plane went like this. When it drops the bomb, it goes down very steeply because that gives it a better angle. And, more speed for the bomb. Very, very heavy bombs. And they go boom. And as soon as those things, the one pilot, the first one said, skedaddle. And that thing just turned in its side. And it's just so.
Samsung.
I know words. I know the best words. That same summit, he was talking to McDonald's executives, talking to them about minimum wage. And again, America first here, right? America first. Been able to condition your base that minimum wage is a bad thing. And he flat out tells McDonald's execs, you shouldn't raise the minimum wage.
Legally. And wages for hourly workers are rising at the fastest pace in 60 years. And sometimes you might say, was that good or bad? It's great for you. The minimum wage thing you'll have to be talking about. You're going to have to fight. We were talking about California.
You're going to have to fight against the minimum wage, guys. You guys are going to have to fight against that. You don't want people making more money.
Gavin Newsom from California. And I knew he's laying siege on the minimum wage. And you people probably know, because that's a very complex subject, and you people probably know better than anybody the impact one way or the other, good or bad. And you're going to let your local congressmen, your senators know about it. But in 9 months, we've lifted.
Don't worry about Donnie. He's just going to sue the American government for $230 million. He's going to allow his buddy, Mike Flynn, to sue the American government for $50 million. His family has enriched themselves to billions of dollars. He pardoned CZ, the guy from Binance. He pardoned him. Binance, by the way, was one of the early seed monies for World Liberty Financial to the tune of $2 billion, where WLF is one of the largest stablecoin providers in that space now. Okay? But again, minimum wage, you guys are going to have to fight against that. God forbid we pay people more money than a living wage. So, that's who he is, everybody. That's who he is. So then that goes into the whole healthcare fantasy. I've been trying to make sense of this whole thing, what his plan is. It still makes no sense. So I'll play the sound for you.
When this thing came about, as you know, I opposed it very strongly. Unfortunately, we had a couple of negative votes, which should never have happened. But I said it's going to be a disaster, and I was exactly right. The premiums have gone up like rocket ships, and I'm not just talking about recently. I'm talking about for years they've been going up. And he said premiums will go down. Everything will be wonderful. It's horrible health insurance at a very high price. And what I want, and probably what you're alluding to, is the fact that I want, instead of going to the insurance companies, I want the money to go into an account for people where the people buy their own health insurance. It's so good. The insurance will be better. It'll cost less. Everybody's going to be happy. They're going to feel like entrepreneurs. They're actually able to go out and negotiate their own health insurance. And they can use it only for that reason. That's the beauty, only for that purpose. And if we did that, that would be so exciting. Call it Trump care, call it whatever you want to call it, but anything but Obamacare. Obamacare is a disaster, just like he was as a president.
None of that is true or even possible. Listen, dude, if you wanna get behind closed doors with Bitch Boy and just say we don't have a solution for healthcare, can we just vote on renaming the Affordable Care Act Trump Care and call it a day? I would be like, cool. Do you remember the conversation we had earlier this week? RTP joined us before he went to Mexico. The gentleman just before defending capitalists, right? The argument that I make all the time is that there's no economic argument against universal health care, the Medicare for all model. And what capitalists forget is that what does capitalism need to function, friends? I should say, what do capitalists need consumers to do? Capitalists need consumers to spend money. So the Medicare for all model puts more money in the pockets of consumers. So what the fuck, Donnie? People don't understand this. I'm not even going to spend time on it because it'll just get me angry, to be perfectly honest. I wanted to say thank you to Gigi. Thank you. Gigi says, I wish MAGA would open their minds. Thank you for speaking out. I would agree, Gigi. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, William, as well. Appreciate you very much. Okay. So let's get into a little bit more of what I wanted to discuss yesterday. There was a famous sit down that Pamela Brown did with a gentleman by the name of Doug Wilson. Doug Wilson is a prominent Christian nationalist. He is one of the people that's expanding the, for lack of a better term, we'll call it the legitimacy of his movement by building Moscow, Idaho in particular. There's one area out there that's part of the world that he lives in. You're seeing these white Christian nationalist communities popping up everywhere. There's multiple in Appalachia, people who know, Arkansas, Missouri, West Virginia, parts of the West, where they're just saying it out loud. Right? So this is about a 30-minute interview. I'll play it in segments for you, but I just want people to understand what it is that we're up against here, okay? Before I play this, there's a brief sound. Yesterday we played Jared Taylor and his concern about the dispossession of white people, which is why he doesn't want immigrants here. He only believes that Europeans should be here. He's also a bona fide Christian nationalist. And he talks about it in terms of not just the dispossession of white people, but he doesn't think that anybody other than white men should have a say. So this is the reason I want to share this as we're talking about believing women, believing survivors. When there's people in our government that are passing laws based on their Christian nationalist tendencies and kinks, this is what happens. Because Christian nationalists, never mind don't believe women just don't have a voice in general in their world. They don't care. They're forced. What was that comment that person made the other day? Forced to believe you? Credible claim of sexual assault or abuse? We're kind of forced to believe women now. How about you just fucking believe women? So this Christian nationalist pastor, his name is Dale Partridge. Okay? So, MAGA. These are the people that you vote with. These are the people that you vote with. So you can play a sound like this to your daughters, to your sisters, and they would ask you, wait, this guy voted for Trump, you voted for Trump, so does that mean that you believe this too? And the answer is yes, you do. So this is Christian nationalist pastor Dale Partridge on the 19th Amendment. Sorry. All right, almost there.
Nearly every legalized moral atrocity. Is it good that women can vote in America?
Nope.
I don't think so, and here's why.
Uh-oh.
Nearly every legalized moral atrocity of the last 100 years was made possible by the female vote.
Oh, no.
Abortion and homosexuality would likely still be illegal if not for the female vote. Mass immigration and the welfare state rode on the backs of the female vote. Nearly every modern Democrat, including Obama and Biden, were elected because of the female vote. Even last night, the new Muslim New York City mayor, Mondami, won specifically because of the female vote. The 19th Amendment has been a moral and political tragedy for America, but why? Women were not made to lead, but to follow and to feel. This is God's design, and it's good within the family and the household. But emotions cannot be what is used to rule and govern a nation. Statistically and generally speaking, women vote for whatever feels most kind or peaceful or safe to their emotions. Women crave security and comfort, and whoever promises those...
Queens, Talking to
people
Queens in the chat, talking to you. That's what they think. They think that your vote for things that he considers morally outrageous, you know what they're telling you? You know what they're telling you? They're telling you that they're afraid of you. All you good girls out there. That's for you, Sam. All you good girls out there. They're telling you that they're afraid of you. They don't want you to participate in democracy because they're afraid of you. They don't want you to have a voice because they are afraid of you. They don't want you to lead because they are afraid of you. They don't want you to have prominent roles in capitalism. They don't want you to have prominent roles in government. I'm sure you do, Jess. They're afraid of you. If you're not angry enough, then you should be. You heard it. All the moral atrocities that we have in our society can be blamed on you. And your response could be, so rights to my body are a moral atrocity? Because I care about my friends and family members and brothers and sisters in the queer community is a moral atrocity? You're not capable of leading, Queens. You're just supposed to be subservient to your man, Queens. Right? That's how you're supposed to be. That's how you're supposed to behave. You're supposed to be silent. You shouldn't have the right to vote. Do whatever your man tells you, right? Does that make you fucking angry? It makes me angry. I can only imagine how it makes you feel. Yeah, exactly. Peace is a moral atrocity? Exactly. So I've said it before. I'll say it again. Give the keys of the car to the matriarchy and get the fuck out of the way. Okay? So that is another example of the Christian nationalism takeover. This is real, all right? This is real. So if you've ever been on the fence as a voter, Queens, no more. No more. Gentlemen, this is what people in our country think of the Queens in your life. They don't think that they matter. They don't think that they should be heard. They don't think that they should be respected. They don't think that they should be, have any role in society other than what Christian nationalists tell them. So MAGA voters, because I want to get into the data behind it because the data is overwhelming. MAGA voters, Christian nationalism is a theme within your party. You heard Jared Taylor yesterday. You heard this Christian nationalist pastor we just played. This is what people who align with you and your beliefs think about the women in your life. So I would like you, MAGA men, I'd like you to walk up to your daughters and say, you know what? You shouldn't have the right to vote. And explain why. Explain why. In fact, I'd like you to sit down with your sons and your daughters and say, Sally, you just need to be quiet. Your voice doesn't matter. Bobby, you get to do whatever the fuck you want. Any women in your life, they worship you. That's what you're saying. That's what they're saying. My mods know my daughter. Can you guys imagine if I said that to my daughter? Get out of the way. All I can say. Think about that, okay? This is real shit. This is what's happening in front of us. And you guys are concerned about men and women's sports? You don't give a fuck. Exactly. More than shin kicks, Francis. Exactly. You don't give a fuck about men and women's sports. You care about controlling women. You don't give a fuck about transgender for everybody. You care about controlling women. You're not pro-life. You don't give a fuck about a newborn child. You care about controlling women. You don't give a fuck about any of it other than you want to control women. That is your desire. Period. Exactly, Dale Partridge. Exactly. You don't fucking care. You don't care. You just want to control women. You won't believe them. You'll ask questions like, what were you wearing? Some of you think that you're forced to believe women. Why were you in that position? Did you lead him on? We hear that from women who support Trump. Well, maybe she shouldn't have worn that. Really? Really? That's your excuse? So once again, your daughter, listen, let's be real, the numbers, 1 in 3, I think the number is 1 in 3 women, girls, because of when the abuse could have happened, are going to be victims of some form of sexual assault, right? 1 in 3, which means in a neighborhood with red hats, there are families that are going to be impacted by this. So what do you tell your daughters? Do you ask them that question? You think they're ever going to come to you and tell you the truth? Because they know who you are. If they do decide, are you going to believe them? Or are they just supposed to be subjected to the man in their life? That he can do whatever the fuck they want. So what are you telling your sons? Dad, you vote for this guy who sexually abused women. Does that mean I can do it too? Well, what was she wearing? Dad, you voted for these people who don't think women should have the right to vote, that they should just, do whatever I say. Well, women can get mouthy. That's what you're teaching them? Really? And listen, there's people who could be on the left who still have got a lot of that misogyny. Fellas, gotta fucking do better. We have got to do better. From the women that I've spoken to about this topic, they don't need our protection. They just need us to fucking believe them. Speaking for myself. They don't need our protection. I think they'd appreciate us being fucking accomplices in the fight for their rights being taken away and for them being subjected to the bullshit that they see every fucking day. Just fucking be better. Just be fucking better. Every one of you, gentlemen, I'm talking to you now. Every one of you that's listening, every one of you, what are you going to do to be better, to do right by the women that are in your lives? Hashtag girl dads. What's the message that you're sharing with your kids? What's the message that you're trying to tell your daughters? We did a live a few weeks back about how, boy dads. What's your message? What's your message to your sons? What is it? Do you want? Are you okay with them growing up and being womenizers? Are you okay with them being like, yeah, this is my house, these are my rules. You abide by what I say, or else? What's the or else? Seriously, this entire thing that we're watching before our eyes now with the Jeffrey files wouldn't exist if we believed women. It wouldn't. We heard the story yesterday of our new friend Frances and about the lengths that she had to go through just so her experience could be documented and heard, and still likely felt that she wasn't going to be believed. What is the message you are telling your sons, and what is the message you're telling your daughters? Because in my opinion, from what I've seen in these Christian nationalist households, they're very different. You don't want your daughters to succeed. You want your daughters to fall in line. You want your daughters to do what their boyfriends, husbands, partners tell them to do. And God forbid, if any of them come out as queer, because they wouldn't, likely with you around. It's not okay. It's just flat out not okay. And until you start doing better, gentlemen, it's not going to change. Joe Best, good morning. How are you today?
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm very opinionated on this. I just wanted to say, I don't want to take up a lot of time. We teach our daughters, don't do this, don't dress this way, don't talk this way, don't act this way, don't do that. But what we don't teach our sons is don't grape. Don't grape.
Exactly.
Like, stop. And these are the same Christian nationalists who teach their daughters, you need to grow up, and when you're 16, 17, 18, you are looking for a man to marry. They're not teaching them to be strong, independent women. They're teaching them, like somebody said, to submit to men. And it's just gross. Men, be better. Teach your sons not to grape, okay? Don't teach, daughters should not have to learn, we can't dress this way, we can't act this way, we can't say these things. Teach your sons not to grape. That's the answer. Thank you. That's all I wanted to say, Steve.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for being here, Joe Best. I appreciate you very much. Have a good day. Be safe out there. She's right. I mean, just think about that statement. Like, teach your boys not to grape. Teach your daughters not to lure them on, or not to dress suggestively, or not to put yourself in bad positions. We have to teach our daughters to be aware of predators. And we can't ask our sons to just be fucking better. What? This, to me, I'm glad somebody just took the words out of my mouth. This is why I am a massive advocate for age-appropriate sex ed. Because I think, I've looked into this and I've had experts talk to me about this. Oftentimes, children are not taught what is good touch and what is bad touch. Somebody that they love touches them in a way that they shouldn't. How would they know? I am an absolute 10 toes down supporter for age-appropriate sex ed. Proper names for body parts, what is good touch, bad touch, what is consent. It's true. What's this? I started telling my sons, well, you tell your daughter, be safe, be kind, be gentle. Yeah, I tell all my kids that. It's not just my daughter. I've told all my kids that since they were little. Because it applies. In fact, they got tattoos with that on there in my handwriting, which I thought was really cool. I'm not going to talk about it too much because I'll get emotional. But this is what we're talking about now. Like, what the fuck are we doing? It can't be okay. It cannot be okay. It can't. So we always talk about it in our empath community about how we've got to do more of the heavy lifting, and we do. We do. We've got to remind people what's at stake. Like we always say, guys, we care more about their kids than they do. We do. We care more about their daughter's safety and freedom and rights to her body than they do. It's just like, what? What? It's not acceptable. There was that, we see all the time, young white boys of privilege getting away with their fucking bullshit. Because that's what the patriarchy, that's what misogyny, that's what Christian nationalism does. They don't care about, our society does not value the fucking queens. It just doesn't. It just doesn't. Again, I'm glad I'm talking about this on my mother's 90th birthday, right? The respect that I had for her because of what she survived, what she stood for, how she stood for it, always with grace, always with rapier wit, always with intelligence, always with critical thought, I am so grateful for that. I am so grateful. I can't even express my gratitude for that. Where's the rest? Where are people standing up to defend the rights of women, marginalized communities? Where the fuck are they? And for people on the left, right? Have you done enough? Have you done enough? Have you been able to unpack some of your little sort of misogynistic tendencies, or the innate misogyny that we all walk around with? Have you been able to unpack that shit? Right? Even little things like you think people talk about political, even little things like calling your little son, oh, he's a little heartbreaker. I did that probably. Sure. Not okay. Not okay. We are doing Mean Girls this week. Our play goes up tomorrow night. Last dress rehearsal tonight. And the theme of that show talks about a lot of these things. Talks about the harm that language has and what it's intended to mean. And there's a famous quote from the actress who plays Karen. And she says, boys should just stop. We should teach our boys to stop sending dick pics. Yeah. Let's do that. Let's teach our boys not to fucking grape. Let's teach our boys not to be fucking dicks, because it's all men until it's no men. Plain and simple. How do we do it? It's not on women, fellas. It's not on them. They're on the receiving end of our bullshit. It's on us. So what the fuck are we going to do about it? We have to call it out. We have to shine a light on it. We have to expose it. And God forbid, we got to fucking stop voting for that shit if you are. Consent, consent, consent. Exactly. Exactly. And now that there are men in these spaces that are trying to do the work, there are men that are trying to unpack. And I'm not going to get it all right all the time. Hell no. I'm not going to get it right. And I can own that shit. But I know what needs to happen, and I want other people to do it. I can't do it by myself. And women aren't going to do it. They don't have to. It's not on them. It's on us. I say that because I want to go through this video of Doug Wilson, because this is the fight that we're in, guys. This is it. So this is Doug Wilson being interviewed by Pamela Brown on his Christian domination. Here you go.
Community here in Moscow is so unique.
You can't make good omelets with rotten eggs. It doesn't matter how good the recipe is. It doesn't matter how good the kitchen is. It doesn't matter how good the cook is. If people aren't walking with God, then it's going to come out bad.
What would have happened if your kids didn't want to follow you?
So this was something, again, that my dad learned from the Apostle Paul, but there were 4 of us growing up in my dad's household, and we all knew that if any one of us walked away from the faith, my dad would step down from ministry.
So you just living as a practicing Christian isn't enough for you?
It's not enough, no.
What does that look like, though, in America ruled by Christ, which is what you want?
Yeah. Well, the most noticeable things right out of the gate would be things that aren't going on anymore. We wouldn't have Clown World. We wouldn't have drag queen story hours. We wouldn't have pride parades. We wouldn't have abortion on demand. Those things would be gone.
So remember what we talked about earlier, and I'll have to, so that we don't get the copyright violation, I kind of have to interrupt the video a little bit. But these are the things that they're afraid of. They're afraid of you. They're afraid of drag queen story hour. They're afraid of diversity. They're afraid of the queer community. They're afraid. I mean, listen. Okay.
And that would be, boy, this is different. So the thing that a lot of the people in the middle, let's call them normies, people who are they're not particularly theological, and they're not hard left either. They're just, I just want to live a normal life. Is that so wrong? The last 5 years has really unsettled them a great deal, because Clown World is not a livable place to bring up kids.
They refer to the rainbow community. They refer to the queer community as Clown World. Again, they do not see anything other than themselves. They being the white Christian nationalist men who are in charge of, who are at the head of this movement. They don't give a fuck about anything other than themselves and their control of power. They want to diminish everybody. Everybody. That's it. Real quick, I saw somebody make a comment in the chat. Lexi, yes, I did. Thank you very much. It's very, very kind of you. I appreciate you very, very much. They don't give a shit. They don't care. They don't fucking care. They will use lies. They will use untruths. They will use fear mongering. Anything they can do to try to convince, especially young men, that it's okay for you to think this way. Young men. I'm just trying to imagine what it would be like to be a gay boy, 13, 14 years old. You've known, you've been repressed. You don't feel like you have a safe space anywhere. A safe space anywhere. You hear your father and your mother talking about the queer community as an abomination, that they shouldn't live, they shouldn't exist, they have no rights. Can you imagine what that would look like? Can you imagine? And we talk about self-unaliving and the incidence of mental health. Can you just imagine what that would be like for any queer kid? Can you imagine? It's like,
It's just not. And a lot of the recoil or the reaction that has happened, and a lot of the reason we're getting the attention we're getting, is people are hungry for answers that don't just whitewash it, or that don't sugarcoat it. And as I'm fond of saying, it's Christ or chaos. And people say, yeah, looking around, that seems to be the case. And
so you're seeing a big expansion in membership in these last few years, really since COVID, right?
Yes. Since 2019, our church community here has doubled in size. Mm-hmm. During the height of COVID, it was like a refugee column, people moving here, chased here by blue state governors, chased here by COVID restrictions, chased here by pastors and elders who flaked on them, who closed their church down. And people, a lot of Christians were discovering that they did not have the Christian leadership that they thought they had. They thought shepherds were supposed to protect the sheep. And when the pressure came, it didn't happen.
Would you define yourself as a Christian nationalist?
Yes.
And how do you define that?
Well, mostly because I much prefer it to the names I usually get called.
How do you define that? Is it you are a Christian and you want this nation to be a Christian nation?
Yeah, I'm a Christian, and I'm an American who loves this country. Mm-hmm. To put those two things together, and since I believe that my Christianity is not something that is to be believed by me behind my eyes and between my ears, it's a public truth.
What do you say to people of different faiths all over the world who don't believe that and have a different God, a different understanding of life and how we all came here?
Yeah, I would say.
We're listening to Doug Wilson. Doug Wilson is a prominent figure in the Christian nationalist movement. He is he's responsible for helping develop communities. One in particular in Moscow, Idaho. That part of the world, I used to live out there. There's militias out there. There's all kinds of weird ass shit in the mountains of Idaho. That's who he's being interviewed by Pamela Brown. This was the interview that happened over the summer, I think it was, and. The focus of the story was about people like Christian nationalists and the Christian domination of America and what it means to be a Christian nationalist. And many of them would never go public with their Christian nationalism before Trump. And now, after I play the sound for you, I'm going to connect the dots to some of the people that are in the same community that he's in, he being Doug Wilson, and are now in our administration. Okay? Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation, it's corn, it's spank material for Christian nationalists. That's it. They'll sit in the corner and pull the goalie all night long because they have this mandate that they can dominate women. They can expect and demand their women be subservient to them. One house, one vote, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Let's have a Bible study. Let's talk about it. Depending on what they've heard, I would want to assure them that the fact that we differ over who God is or differ over ultimate reality does not give me warrant to persecute you. So we're going to talk about this because The Christian faith does not advance by the sword. The Christian faith advances by preaching, the sword of the Spirit, planting churches, preaching, declaring, etc. So I'd want to visit with them. I'd want to imitate what the Apostle Paul did all through the book of Acts. He comes to Athens and he preaches Christ and the resurrection to a city full of idolaters, but he doesn't mount a military campaign. Yeah.
What would you say to historic scholars who say America was not founded as a Christian nation?
I would have fun with them.
Don't you think if the framers had the same vision as you, that this is a Christian nation, that they would have made that explicit in the Constitution and not have put in the Establishment Clause and the prohibition of religious tests for office holders, that they would have made it explicit in the documents?
The federal government may not have a Church of the United States. Like the Church of England, the Church of Denmark is the Lutheran Church. They have flat prohibited a Church of the United States. And they flat prohibited religious tests for office at the federal level.
Thomas Jefferson, for his part, was a big proponent of religious liberty.
Right.
It was one of his big accomplishments. Yeah. It's on his gravestone that he had this religious liberty law passed in Virginia.
Yeah.
So what would you say to historic scholars who would point to that and say, the framers of this country did not mean for this to be a Christian nation. They meant for it to be a nation where people can exercise their religion freely, no matter what that religion is.
First, I would invite these historic scholars in the most friendly way possible to have a public debate on the subject. I think I don't want to... King Ahab in the Old Testament says, let not him who puts on his armor boast like him who takes it off. But I think I would do okay. And I think I would do okay because I'd be able to point.
Or
the point that he brought up there about how, debating an historic scholar, well, I don't, there's the argument that he tries to make about wanting to debate historians, when you're debating, when you're debating, can you hear me now? Yes? Good? We're good? Thank you. When you're debating Christian nationalists, they just see the world the way that they want to see it. You're not going to change anybody's mind. You're not going to be able to convince a Christian nationalist that we're anything other than a Christian nation in their mind. We're not. Okay? We're just not. You don't have the Establishment Clause of the Constitution that says Congress shall make no law. It's just, we're not. Think about the Puritans. Think about the colonists and the colonizers, I should say, and the Pilgrims. They were freeing religious persecution. They wanted to be able to believe what they believed or not believe. That is like a fundamental principle of our country. That and separate the peaceful transition of power. That they wanted to have the religious freedom. So again, you're not going to convince a Christian nationalist anything other than what they believe. To me, though, it's more than just the religious. It's the religious side of it. It's how they want to control women. I think the whole thing is around that. And personally, I'd love to see somebody challenge that opinion, but I don't see it anything other than wanting to control women. Just because the church itself tells them, the tabernacle tells them that women just don't have a place. So they believe that. They just want to control you, queens. They're mocking you. They're afraid of you. They don't think you're as smart as they are. They don't think you're as tough as they are. They don't think you're as capable as you are, as they are. They don't think you're as strong as they are. I say, prove them fucking wrong every fucking day and do it over and over and over again. and seek positions of leadership. Not that you aren't now, but demand it. Why fucking settle? We talk about this all the time. Why settle for the system we have now? It's not news. I know it's not news to you guys. I know that. It's not news to you. But these are the people that are now in our government. So back to the sound.
Right. So if we had a Christian republic and a Muslim came to Disneyland with his family, we have no problems. But when they fill up Dearborn, Michigan, that's just not. You can. It says in Amos 3:3, can two walk together except they be agreed? You cannot put alien worldviews together, cheek by jowl, and have peace.
Absolutely you can, because that's what fucking America is, you fucking dumbass. Bring me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free. That's a fundamental principle of our nation. Not a Christian nation, the nation as it was established. Love who you want, be who you want to be, seek out your own American dream, if that even still exists, and practice whatever religion or non-religion you choose. Like, what?
Right. So basically, I think a lot of the religious turmoil that we have, the clashes that we would have, could be addressed by a sane immigration policy, not a policy that tries to regulate what people can say or do in their religious convictions while here.
So the foundation for you is you believe this is a Christian nation,
right,
despite the debate from historic scholars.
Exactly. But notice that when the Muslim says to me, who are you to say? I can say, all right, we have to live together. Who are you to say which way it should go? And then the secularist comes in and says, let's do it this way. And Muslim and I would both turn to him and say, and who are you to say?
So you feel like we can't have a functioning society?
Yeah, we can't.
Without.
And look at our society currently, not functioning.
Do you believe that secular society?
So think about that for a second. He believes you can't have a functioning society if women play a prominent role. That's what he's telling you. You know, if you listen, like I said, I don't just focus on this just from the religious rhetoric and bullshit. It's how they view women in particular, right? He doesn't think we can have a functioning society if women are in charge. Queens, y'all getting angry? I hope so. What do you want, doggy? All right, here we go.
Society is basically a religion of its own that is the antithesis of your
Correct.
Christianity?
Secularism is a religious faith, religious commitment. Remember what I said about if there is no God above the state is God. Mm-hmm. Well, if that's the case for the secularist, and I believe it is, and it's a religious level commitment, then who's in charge of the current secular God?
And how much is your post-millennialism belief driving all of this?
Great deal of it, yes.
Tell our viewers about that, what that is.
Most American evangelicals are premillennial, meaning that they believe everything's falling apart, and when things get really bad, the Antichrist is going to take over, and then Jesus will come again and save us from all that. But it's a pretty grim view of human history between now and the end. So that's the premillennial understanding. A postmillennialist is someone who believes that the gospel is going to be victorious in the world. The nations will, in fact, be discipled.
And you have said, I don't have a direct pipeline to Pete Hegseth.
Right.
But don't you think your influence is having an impact right now?
I hope so. I write books.
Doug Wilson, by the way, this guy, Doug Wilson, Pete Hegseth's pastor, in case you didn't know.
And I don't write and publish books to launch them into the void. I want people to read them and be influenced by them. Mm-hmm. And when people read them and are influenced by them and they're in a position to actually do something, it's gratifying. I'm happy about that.
Because for many years, decades frankly, your views were really seen as fringe.
Yes.
Now do you see them?
Not by me, not by my wife.
Not by you or your wife or your community, but
yes.
They were seen as fringe. Do you now see them becoming more mainstream?
Yes, I do. They have become, my views on a number of...
Do you want to know one of the reasons why they're becoming more mainstream? Is because people like Pete Hegseth are in our administration. People like Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House. The Heritage Foundation being the fucking, like I said, the Christian nationalist corn spanks a lot material is like the doctrine for the takeover of our nation. That's why it's becoming more mainstream. It's not mainstream. I should say this. We cannot let it become mainstream. Now, can we? The answer is no, we can't.
Things have become steadily more mainstream and have done that without me moving at all.
You think people have come to you? They've come to you.
So basically, what has happened as the whole zeitgeist of the official zeitgeist has moved steadily left into more and more woke territory.
More woke territory, right? So being aware of social injustices in a Christian nationalist mind is a bad thing. Okay.
A number of normies, as I called them earlier, looked at where that was going and said, I don't want to go there. And so maybe we ought to give that Wilson character a second look. He sounded pretty crazy 20 years ago, but I'm rethinking that.
And what are you seeing happen in the Trump administration right now that reflects your Christian values?
The series of appointments in the federal judgeships that led to the overturning of Roe would be the central thing. If
there it is,
our church doesn't have a spire with a bell on it yet, but if we had the bell, that would have been when Dobbs came down. We would have been ringing it all day.
And you want to see Obergefell?
I want to see Obergefell go the same direction. I am very pleased with the naming of just the fraudulent behavior that has overseeing the squandering of trillions of dollars. One of my old jokes was that I'm opposed to chaplains praying at Congress because the Bible says not to turn a den of thieves into a house of prayer. Mm-hmm. And it's just the pillage that is going on there has been remarkable, and I'm just very gratified at the efforts of DOJ and other things like that to put a spotlight on those sorts of things.
And what about?
So let's call that out now, shall we? What he's referring to is not wanting USAID to help communities around the globe, not using American economic might to help communities, in parts of Africa where they have AIDS epidemics that have ravaged their society, providing feminine hygiene products for societies that are shut off because of civil unrest and civil war, humanitarian aid programs, helping people who are poor. And most of these programs he's referring to benefit women and children. And as a Christian, that's a bridge too far. Got it.
Banning transgender military members.
Oh, that's great.
You think that's great?
That's absolutely great.
And gender issues.
I'm, as I mentioned before the interview, I was in the submarine service, for example, and whatever idiot thought of putting women on submarines.
You go again. I know that there's people in our community, queens that have served their nation proudly, honorably. He doesn't think you should. You don't belong in a submarine. You guys don't deserve to serve. No, you don't deserve that.
Well, what would you say to a female submariner who's been doing the job and kicking butt doing it?
I'd say, yeah, we don't want you down here kicking butt.
Why?
Because I went to sea a couple of times. Mm-hmm. We were submerged for 2.5 months. All right. 2.5 months, let's say 130 guys in a submarine with 3 women on it.
Wait for it.
Okay, so let's put 130 horny sailors and 3 women and submerge them out in the middle of the Atlantic for 2.5 months. What could go wrong?
What did Joe Best say when she came up earlier? So if there's 130 men and 3 women and it's the women's fault that men act out, that's exactly what he's fucking saying. So it's the women's fault, right? It's the women's fault that men are going to assault them under the waves, so to speak. Yeah, exactly. And then he laughs.
I'd say Come on.
You have a patriarchal view of how society should be.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, there are certain places that ought to be male-only spaces, and combat is one of them. And being closed up in a submarine is another one. And
you know why, dude? Because you just admitted that men can't control themselves. You just admitted it. You just admitted that. You just admitted that. Okay.
So what it boils down to is that sort of thing. Egalitarianism has been the basic platform, and feminism is a subset of egalitarianism. And you can't split the difference on this sort of thing. So if you're going to have a submarine, you have to make a decision who's going to be on it, right? And either the secular egalitarian worldview will prevail, or a patriarchal Christian worldview will prevail, or a patriarchal Muslim view. Somebody's going to have to decide.
But bottom line, do you believe men and women are equal in society?
Well, they are in our society, but they're not equal in the world.
What do you mean by that?
Because men and women are different. They're just different. When I said I don't want women in combat, it's not an arbitrary rule. It's not like we want the women to stand on this side of the room and the men to stand on that side. There's certain things that men do better than women do. There's certain things that women do better than the men do. And I think we should let scripture and natural revelation tell us which is which. Men are good at smashing and breaking things. They're good at fighting. And when you have this...
Very telling. Men are good at smashing and breaking things and good at fighting. Society tells men the only emotions that you can show publicly are anger and lust. Seriously. You can act out on your anger is an emotion. Sure. But that's what society tells men. Can't show emotion unless it's anger and lust. And here's this guy saying the same thing. Men, we good break stuff. We good war. Fucking Cro-Magnon fucking bullshit. Okay.
It's egalitarian dogma that women and men have to be the same. What happens is it's like saying everybody has to be able to dunk the basketball. If you've got an egalitarian dogma that says everyone has to be able to dunk, the only thing you're going to wind up doing is lowering the net. And so consequently, you've got firemen, one of the things that Pete Hegseth has done is instead of making a regulation concerning the women, he just said, we're back to a uniform standard of fitness for going into certain avenues, certain places. And that de facto...
AC, buddy, I see you. Hang tight, because I know you live out that way. I'll bring you up in just a minute. Let me just get through a little bit more of this.
Is going to exclude many of the women, right?
But do you think the underlying premise was what you're saying? Women shouldn't be in combat.
Correct.
Our viewers might hear that and think he wants to turn this into a totalitarian, patriarchal society. He wants to turn America into Gilead with handmaids.
Right.
Yeah. What do you say to that?
What I want to do is keep women out of submarines, which is not totalitarianism.
That's
Now, there's things, the way in which he answers questions, it's like, I want to keep women out of things. It's never been about the advancement of women because they don't give a fuck. This is Doug Wilson. He is a Christian nationalist pastor. He is a predominant dominionist. He's Pete Hegseth's spiritual advisor, right? They don't, they're bragging about this. They're bragging about it. Literally, the analogy that he gave is 130 sailors. Horny sailors, he said. All right? Bet those sailors are not nearly as horny as the mods in my mod chat, but that's a different conversation. Because no one is. He talks about 130 horny sailors in a submarine, and it's the women, the three women that might be down there as well, it's their fault that the men can't control themselves. Seriously, that's the argument. That's what we were talking about earlier. Well, what were you wearing? Maybe you shouldn't have gone there. Did you lead him on? That's what we're fucking talking about. My mods know. They're proud of it. Don't worry. That's what we're talking about.
One example.
Right. It's you've got to decide which way you're going to go. So, for example, when you send Bruno into shower with the junior high girls, and you force that on them, and you arrest parents who protest at the school board meeting, I would call that totalitarian.
Jesus.
And what I'm trying to, I'm not fond of quoting Vladimir Lenin positively, but he once said, whom? Who's doing what to whom? So when someone says, oh, you're imposing on the woman who wants to be a fighter pilot or who wants to be a submariner, you're imposing on her, I say yes, but what you're doing is imposing on other people. You're imposing your worldview on other people. There's no way.
So you see it, they can't coexist.
There's no way that antithetical worldviews can exist without one imposing on the other.
But why isn't it enough to have this community here in Moscow? You've built this Christian community. Why isn't it enough to just live that way and let everyone else live the way they want in America?
Good question.
Oh, we're happy to live that way as long as they let us, right? But it's not going to shake out that way.
What do you mean?
It's got to give at some point, right? So here's an example. The logic of egalitarianism means that our daughters are going to be drafted at some point to go fight in some stupid foreign war.
So you see the slippery slope.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've lived on this slippery slope my entire life.
But other people might say, well,
excuse me, our daughters being drafted because of wars started by fucking men. Like, what? So I'm going to pause for just a minute so we can avoid the copyright violation. And I saw my friend AC had requested, I think he might have a connection to the community or maybe knows a little bit more because I know he lives out in that part of the world. I used to live out there as well. Good morning, buddy. How are you, my friend?
Pretty good. Do we have an echo?
Yeah, we're good.
Perfect. All right. First off, Steve, love your morning shows as always. I'm always in here listening one ear thoroughly to the speaker. I am a graduate of Moscow, Idaho. I've lived there, lived on the Palouse, lived around the Palouse for 26 years of my life. This is the Christchurch cult. That is what we call it out here, because they are literally taking over Moscow. They have their own a couple of set of churches now. They just built their new K-12 school out in a wheat field with a football field. They built it in like the style that a church house in the 1920s would have been built, but with bricks. So they have New St. Andrews College. They have their own college that is their main source of getting new recruits is the New St. Andrews College. If you guys want to look that up, you sure can. It is literally how Doug Wilson started to cultivate this mass Christian nationalist movement in our area, in my area here. He is absolutely in the belief that women's feet need to be shorter so they can be closer to the kitchen sink. I shit you not. This is words that have come out of his followers' mouth. So it is quite concerning, and it has been concerning for us in our little part of the world for a long time. He's been doing this for over 20 years, so it's been slow, but we've seen it coming, and now it's just bubbling to a head. So I would absolutely advise. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think I may have misspoke to say that Doug Wilson was Pete Hegseth's pastor, more of his spiritual advisor. I'm not sure if I got that right.
Yes, spiritual advisor is correct. Yeah, Pete. No, so Doug Wilson actually lives out here. Pete Hegseth does not, but Doug Wilson consistently is going and has been since 2016 going to DC and visiting these people in DC, and now they're branching out. They're making different sects in this country, and we here on the Palouse have tried to be loud and proud about it and making sure that people know that there's a cult growing. But there's only so much you can do,
I appreciate that perspective, my friend. As always, you going live today, or if you don't follow AC, please do. Love AC's work. He's the kind of guy who will literally get on the phone for 5 hours and contact every member of Congress and say, "What the fuck are you doing?" So, talk about somebody who's doing something. AC is doing something. I appreciate you, buddy. Thanks for jumping in.
And thank you, sir. Have a good day.
You got it, man. Take care. So it's fucking scary. This guy's scary. This is real shit, man. This is real fucking shit. This is real shit. There was talk about Doug Wilson wanting to open up a church in D.C. Okay? So let's get back to this.
Well, there's a slippery slope with your view that women's rights are just gradually taken away, for example.
Sure, but the slippery slope that I'm talking about is the one that we're actually sliding down. So the thing
you don't think they're sliding down your slippery slope?
No, I don't. Now, I do believe, let's put it this way. I do believe that there have been instantiations of Christianity in politics that have gone very badly. You know,
like what?
Spanish Inquisition, or there are things like that I think, that's no good, and we should never.
Gee, I'm glad you called out the Spanish Inquisition as being bad. Cool.
Do that again. I'm an advocate of Christendom, but the first Christendom had some warts, that had some things that we don't ever want to do again. So there are slippery slopes on the Christian side of things, and I think we should guard against those things. But right now, that's not anywhere close to being our central problem.
You basically think you're David and Goliath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So over my shoulder right here, there is a poster of the cover of a book, and it says, "It's good to be a man."
Right.
What does that mean?
It means that that book is an argument that is a defensive reaction defending young men who don't know who they are because they have been taught their entire life that white heterosexual males are cancerous.
I got some news for you, Doug. It's the fucking truth. As the collective, it's the fucking truth, my guy. I say it every single day. It's all men until it's no men. It's all white people until it's no white people. Therefore, it's all white men until it's none. I mean, give me a fucking break. Who commits the majority of violent crimes, essays, you name it. Come on, man. Come on, Doug. Do fucking better, bro.
Masculinity is tagged as toxic masculinity. If a boy acts like a boy in school, we hit him on the head with a chemical rock. We don't, because we don't know how to discipline them.
What?
We don't know how to make boys stand up straight. We don't know how to make them work hard. We don't know how to train boys as boys who are going to become men. One of the books that I wrote was called.
What? Exactly. What? We don't know how to train boys to become men? I got news for you. People like you, Doug, are the fucking problem. You're the problem. You're the problem. People are out there, men with children, the work that you're trying to do to let me back up a second. Do you prescribe to this theory? Men? Do you guys support this belief set? I've said it a million times. You've got a son and a daughter. If you prescribe to this worldview, your daughter doesn't matter. Your son does, but your daughter doesn't. You can't have it both ways. If you believe what they believe, it doesn't even have to be Christian nationalism. It could just be hardcore Christianity. We've had conversations in this space. We've called this bullshit out before, right? Where it's like, yeah, it's dad's house, king of the castle, whatever that means. I mean, what side of how do you want to raise your kids? Do you want to raise your boys? Again, back to what Joe Best said earlier, maybe just the bare minimum is to teach them not to grape. How about that? Maybe we start there. Okay, grape, bad, don't do it. Instead, you make it very clear that your boys can pretty much do whatever the fuck they want because you diminish women. You don't think they have a fucking role in society. You don't think their voices should be heard. You don't think they matter. Period. You can just say it. We could have avoided this 25-minute interview. Jesus, Doug.
Future men, because boyhood should be aimed at manhood. And boys and girls are not the same. And so you have to train them. You have to train girls to be women, and you have to train boys to be men.
Train queens, did you hear that? Let's train you all to be women. And in his mind, training you to be women would be to be subservient to your men, to do what they say, to not complain, to not speak up, to not defend yourself. And in the worldview of him, training your boys to be men would be to be subservient or to be the boss. It's your house. You can do whatever you want. These are the people that are in our fucking government. These are the people that are making policy decisions. These are the people behind Project 2025.
And if you don't do that and you spend your time attacking boys.
Good point. And in his world, non-binary people don't exist. That's exactly right. They don't exist. They just don't. Good point. Thank you for calling that out.
For masculine traits, they're gonna grow up to be pretty screwed up. And
right now, a lot of people believe that there's a masculinity crisis in the United States. Just when you look at the data of, school test scores, graduation rates, that kind of thing. Are you seeing
absolutely
more men be drawn to your church right now?
Yes. One of the things that is attractive to many of the people who have come here is that we're not apologetic about the masculinity that is present here. Now, neither are we apologetic for the femininity, but then as soon as you say masculinity, femininity, people say you're stereotyping. You're saying men are like this and women are like that. And I'd say, yep, we're stereotyping, guilty.
So what does that mean? What role do you think women play in society?
Women are the kind of people that people come out of.
Oh, boy.
So you just think they're meant to have babies. That's it. They're just a vessel.
No, it doesn't take any talent to simply reproduce biologically.
Doug, women are literally making eyeballs and spinal cords. Doug. And brain stems and skulls and hearts and lungs and livers and bones. Let's hear this piece again.
You say masculinity, femininity, people say you're stereotyping. You're saying men are like this and women are like that. And I'd say, yep, we're stereotyping, guilty.
So what does that mean? What role do you think women play in society?
Women are the kind of people that people come out of.
So you just think they're meant to have babies. That's it. They're just a vessel.
No, it doesn't take any talent to simply reproduce biologically. Jesus. The wife and mother, who is the chief executive of the home, is entrusted with 3 or 4 or 5 eternal souls.
I'm here as a working journalist, and I'm a mom of 3.
Good for you.
Is that an issue
for
you?
No, it's not automatically an issue.
So, like, in your view of a Christian nation, a Christian America, would this be acceptable that I'm here as a working mom in Idaho?
Sure. Wouldn't
be.
Sure. This is the thing. There's a difference between what's a sin and a crime. Okay, so in every society, there's certain things that are just, you don't let people do it. All right, it's a crime. It's against the law. Then there are things that I would advise people not to do. Pastorally, it'd be a pastoral advice. It wouldn't be a law. It wouldn't be a rule. So, for example, if you have women who are domestic, talented, educated, and high-powered, and I'm related to a number of those, right? So my wife has written 8 or 9 books, and my daughters have written books. Both my daughters have written books. One daughter has edited an English curriculum, English lit curriculum, and they are a mother of 5 and a mother of 8, and they are full tilt domestic, and they are high energy, talented people. I would say go team go. That's wonderful. At the same time, I don't want to disparage women who want to spend their time in the home, just focusing. I don't want to backhand it or disparage it at all. I want to honor that.
I want to honor that.
I want to honor that.
But you're comfortable with a working mom leaving the home and
sure.
Okay. So I'm a woman sitting across from you. Do you view me as an equal?
Oh, equal what? Equal person? Absolutely.
As an equal person with equal rights.
Equal person. So equal person, equality of citizenship. I would say, well, if you're a citizen, then there would be equality. But yes, God has created in the first chapter of Genesis, male and female created he them. In the image of God, he created them. So man and woman complement one another and together represent the image of God. So, and that's,
But you don't believe husband and wife are equals.
Well, I don't think they have equal roles. So, but it's like asking which is more equal, the violin or the bow? I say the violin or the bow. They're one instrument. The violin and bow is one instrument.
Right, but from what I've read about you and your interviews, you have said that you believe the wife should be submissive to the husband, and therefore that would be equal if the wife is submissive to the husband.
Well, it wouldn't be. For example, if you at CNN,
the struggle to answer the question is very telling.
You've got bosses all the way up, and you make a distinction, as you ought to, between your equality with them as a human being and the fact that they happen to have authority over you in this job. Okay, so a person can say, my boss is my equal, as human beings are concerned. We should both have a right to a fair trial. We should both have the right to keep and bear arms. We should both have the right to free speech. But when I go into work, he has the right to tell me what to do, and I don't have the right to tell him what to do. So
that's a dynamic you see in marriage.
Yeah, within the confines of marriage, the husband is the head, the wife is submissive, his helpmeet. And when you enter into this, it's a believing Christian man and a believing Christian woman, both of whom want that arrangement.
Is the wife the property of the husband, essentially?
No.
Okay.
No.
The fuck it isn't, Doug. That's exactly how you see it.
The wife is, as Paul says in Galatians 3:28, in Christ there's neither Jew nor Greek, slave or free, male or female. So in Christ, before God, worshiping God, there's absolute equality between men and women.
But your view is, in the household, the dynamic between a husband and wife is one of where the wife is submissive to the husband. And what does that look like in practice? Can the wife say no to the husband?
Under certain circumstances, she must say no to her husband. So,
like what?
So, as I'm fond of telling our people, no human authority on earth is absolute. The civil authority is not absolute. It's a true authority, but it's not absolute. There are times when you disobey the magistrate. The authority of the church, pastors and elders, is true human authority, but it's not absolute. There are times when you should leave a church. The authority of a husband is a true authority. There are times when a wife should tell him respectfully to pound sand.
As you well know, there have been claims.
Oh, I know.
That you have minimized or sort of brushed under the rug sexual abuse and violence.
Yes, there have been claims of that nature, and I would say, look at them go. Let them say what they say. It's simply false. So
let them say what they say. It's entirely false. Let them say what they say. Remember how we discussed to start the show today that we would avoid all the bullshit that we're seeing around us every single fucking day if people could just fucking believe women? Right? Just let them say what they say. It's all false. Of course it is.
So we
helped a pedophile.
Well, I conducted the marriage ceremony, but I did do that. So, but I didn't set them up. I didn't arrange it for it. I didn't.
But you acknowledge, by the way, part of the story is that he married a convicted or a person with credible accusations in his past of P3D-ophilia. He presided over the ceremony. He's also been an advocate for lowering the age of consent nationally.
Okay. All the things you hear online that I did in that situation.
So why would you marry off a pedophile?
Exactly.
Because it was legal. He's a professing Christian. The woman...
That's a big tell, because it was legal and he was a professing Christian. Cool. Got it.
Married, understood his background, understood what she was getting into. I didn't arrange it. It was not an arranged marriage. It was not pressured. It was nothing like that.
Jesus Christ.
Basically, when someone... one of the things that people don't realize is what pastors actually have to deal with. Pastors are helping people.
On homosexuality, I mean, the Bible talked about stoning as punishment.
Right.
Would you endorse punishing someone who is gay in the America you want to be living in?
This brings up another old controversy. King Asa in Israel and King Jehoshaphat, both in modern parlance, they both closed the bathhouses. They shut it down. And they exiled, they said, all done with that, and exiling homosexuals. And the scripture praises both men for doing that, which means that the requirement for the death penalty that does exist in Leviticus, that requirement was not a minimum penalty, but was a maximum penalty, because scripture praises the kings who didn't execute the homosexuals. They just shut the orgy down. They just shut the party down. So there is latitude in the application of biblical law. There is latitude in how it's applied from the scripture itself. So,
but bottom line, do you see any America and the America you want to be living in where homosexuals are punished?
I think that
because they've decided that they're, they want to live freely as a gay person.
Yeah, I would say, yeah. But
punished how?
When I first began ministering, just so you understand how the Overton window has moved. When I first began ministering as a Christian minister, I was grown, an adult, and preaching the gospel. Sodomy was a felony in all 50 states. All 50. Now I didn't begin.
And the Supreme Court, I know, stepped in and overturned that because
no, my point, yeah.
There was the Lawrence ruling.
Correct.
And the Supreme Court said that.
Yeah, the whole thing. We are where we are now. My point is that when I began ministering in 1977, in the late 70s and early 80s, and sodomy was a felony in all 50.
Do you remember when we talked? I think it might have been yesterday or the day before, when the rise of Christian nationalism, at least overtly, because connected post-civil rights movement, post women's rights, women's liberation, the rise of feminism. It's because people like Doug Wilson. This is Doug Wilson, by the way. He's a pastor of this fucked up wing of the Christian cult. It's people like him who are part of that pushback. Like, well, we can't let women have more of a voice. We certainly can't let black people have more voices. Civil rights? What are we fucking talking about here? We're now giving rights to the, as he calls it, the clown show, right? So that's where this started. They identified Reagan, post-70s, as their champion. Instead of saying, listen, we're just going to be Christian nationalists and we're going to tell people how to live their lives, that's not going to sell politically. So what did they go after? They went after Roe. For 50 fucking years, that was their goal. It was always their target. It never left the crosshairs politically. They finally get Trump. They get Christian Nationals, Heritage Foundation, and the Federalist Society nominating judges, and that's how you lose. That's how women lost the right to their body. A summary. That's pretty close to the truth. So this is the same movement that's been out there. It's just gotten louder and louder and louder and louder.
50 states. That America of that day was not a totalitarian hellhole.
So you would like America to go back to that?
Yep.
And someone watching this might be like, you want to control behavior in the bedroom?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I have the advantage of having built my own house. And
why the fuck is the moral majority so concerned with who people fuck? Why do they give a fuck? Why do they fucking care what you do between the sheets? Why do they fucking care? What is their obsession with genitals? Who you get busy with? From my perspective, they need to have more sex. We all need to have more sex. It would chill people out. Seriously. Why the fuck? Somebody should get Doug Wilson's address and send him a whole bunch of toys. Prostate massagers, cock rings, all kinds of shit. See if you can figure it out. This obsession they fucking have with genitals and what people do in their bedrooms is wild.
People like to say that liberals don't care what you do in your bedroom, but the state had opinions about how thick the sheetrock had to be in the bedroom, how far apart the sheetrock screws had to be, how big the window had to be for egress, and whether or not I could take the mattress off the tag. What do you mean the government doesn't care what happens in the bedroom? They regulate.
And that goes to your sort of libertarian.
Oh my God, that's the stretch? How thick is your sheetrock? Wait. Exactly. And where the window of egress is and what the dew point is in your hallway, that's the argument you want to make? That's the comparison you want to make? Do you think Doug Wilson has a sex swing? Probably not.
Libertarian.
That's exactly it.
Your libertarian tendencies. But it sounds like, what your vision is from the writings of like R.J. Rushdoony, who is a Christian Reconstructionist. Would you call yourself a Christian Reconstructionist?
Maybe small r Reconstruction. I was never a card-carrying member of that, but I read Rushdoony and I read Gary North and I read Bonson and learned an awful lot from them, but I never signed off on the entire project. But
What part did you not sign off on?
Oh, they were kind of an ornery lot and fighting with each other a lot, and I think some of the applications of Old Testament law were too wooden. So I think that you have to budget for the fact that Christ came and transformed the world. So when Christ died, the Old Testament law was crucified with him, and the Old Testament law rose again from the dead with him, but rose again transformed.
And the family, the church, and the civil government buckets, where does the poor fit in helping the poor and the needy and the most vulnerable? Would that be up to the church or the civil government?
It'd be up to families and the church, and I would say as a final safety net, the civil government.
Okay. Because I know R.J. Rushdoony, in many ways, he thought the church should take on that role.
Yes, but for example, in the Old Testament, the civil government, the gleaning laws, for example, where you left part of your field for the poor to glean and get sustenance. That's the sort of thing that the civil government could say, we want you to do that.
And you basically think the civil government should stay out of the business of the family unit that you see as its own sort of enterprise.
The family is the ministry of health, education, and welfare. The church is the ministry of grace and peace, or the ministry of word and sacrament. And the civil government is the ministry of justice.
I just put that interview. It's Pamela Brown from CNN interviewing Doug Wilson about his crusade for Christian domination in the age of Trump. And it's in the Discord. I'm sure the mods will post in the general chat. Thank you for hanging in there on that. I just think it's really important because it speaks to exactly what it is that we've been trying to talk about all week. About, the how they just brush off toxic masculinity, basically by saying there's nothing wrong with it because men break stuff, men do war. You don't think it's a coincidence that Pete Hegseth, who, by the way, this guy was the spiritual advisor for, wants to turn the Department of Defense into, what is that again, friends? The Department of War. Society tells men the only emotions you can show publicly are anger and lust. And he agrees. He agrees. Unbelievable. I see you, Erica. Speaking of Queens, Erica's in here. Erica and Hector are going to be live today, 2:30 Eastern time. Please head on over there. Thank you, Erica. I love Erica and Hector. But Erica, in case you didn't know, you should ask Hector when you see him today. I think I saw him in the chat earlier. The gift, I'll leave it at this. The gift that he gave to the chat and to my mod team in particular, that has been captured for posterity purposes. So, yes, but thank you, Erica. That's very kind of you. I appreciate you very much. Thank you to William. Thank you to Gigi, Michelle, Linda. You guys are great. Thank you so very, very much. I appreciate you. 2:30 Eastern time, you'll find Erica and Hector live together. So, Robert Morris, I think is his name. Robert Morris was Donald Trump's spiritual advisor, right? Robert Morris also has connections to this same sort of dominionist movement. Robert Morris was just recently jailed for violating a child. I think she was 12. Pete Hegseth, we know of his views towards women. We know of his views towards women serving in particular. It could have been Pete Hegseth talking about the submarine. Yeah, Mr. Wilson had a serious obsession with semen now, didn't he? Listen, this stuff is not fun to talk about, but this is the underlying sort of like the current that is just below the surface of everything that we talk about here, right? We talk about this in terms of reminding folks who it is that we're fighting against. We always talk about the corporate class. We talk about the one percenters. We talk about the billionaires, and it's very, 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 very true. It's all very, very true. But the people that the billionaire class are supporting are people that we currently have in our government. So they're running the agenda, and the corporate billionaire class, they don't give a fuck. They just want access to power. So they'll pump money into campaigns that are based solely on culture wars. I mean, think about this statement. Okay, you heard what this guy said. You heard what Doug said. This is the statement from the president. I don't care when the Senate passes the House bill, whether tonight or at some point in the future. I just don't want Republicans to take their eyes off all the victories that we've had, including the great big beautiful bill, closed borders, no men and women sports, transgender for everyone, ending DEI, stopping Biden's record-setting inflation, biggest tax and regulation cut in history, stopping 8 wars, rebuilding our military, being respected by every country in the world, having trillions of dollars, blah, blah, blah. It's the fucking script. This is the script. We're going to use every culture war we can to scare and fearmonger our voters, especially the men, because again, Queens, they're afraid of you. They're afraid of you. We've heard other Christian nationalists say, why would you want to overturn, why don't you want women to have the right to vote? Because the more women vote, the less power we'll have. They're telling you out loud. So use it. Use it. So let's be specific with the Trump administration and Christian nationalism. So by definition, it broadly refers to the belief that the United States is or should be a Christian nation. In particular sense, the Christian faith, usually a fairly narrow, typically evangelical, white Protestant version, should shape the identity, culture, public life, and laws of the nation. A belief that American national identity is bound with Christianity, often specifically white evangelical Christianity. A sense of grievance or decline, for example, that Christianity or white Christian culture is under threat. The dispossession of white people, desire for continuity or restoration, for example, restoring Christian and or Christian nationalist culture, cultural dominance, or reversing perceived secularization or pluralism, often tied to major public policy issues, for example, immigration, LGBTQ rights, pluralism, abortion rights. Sounds like the Republican policy platform, doesn't it? Yeah. Trump enjoys very strong support from white evangelical Christians and from those described in literature as Christian nationalists. Literature Review states this literature review aims to understand Donald Trump's contradictory and overwhelming support from Christians. Further, this literature review explores the association between Christianity and the Republican Party. These ideas are related to Christian nationalism, not traditional Christianity. So it's like, it's the fucking script, man. It's the script, it's the whole playbook. I know we've talked about it in terms of, the fake Christians and whatever else it might be. I'm not judging your faith. I'm not here to do that. If your faith helps you get through the day, then I support that. And I'm not diminishing Christians, those who truly believe in their faith and are kind to others and support the poor and all those kinds of things. I have issues with organized religion in general, but this shit, even Christians that I know are like, that's not us. And I even saw some of the people commenting on it now. It's like, I'm not a believer, but I don't have to be. I live in a nation where my opinions should be respected. Similarly, I don't judge you by yours. Just don't tell me that our society is a Christian nation, because it's not. But it goes a little deeper, because people in his organization, in his administration, and his government, Paula White, we've seen her. She speaks in tongues. We've seen her do it. We've seen her have prayer services outside in like these chanting sessions, this speaking in tongue bullshit, like literally outside the Oval Office. She has an office just down the hall from the Oval Office. Russ Vought, self-described Christian nationalist with an influential role in shaping Project 2025 and the entire Trump agenda. Lance Wallnau, preacher linked to Christian nationalist ideology, helped mobilize evangelical support for Trump. And Jericho March, grassroots mobilizer of Christian nationalist protests tied to Trump rallies. In 2016, Trump wins. Evangelicals had given him strong support despite concerns about his character. Right? Think about this. They had concerns. They heard the Access Hollywood tape. But they supported him anyway. Because it's not about their own beliefs. It's about their agenda. We need this guy, no matter what he's done. It's like, la, 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 don't look over here. Similarly with Epstein. It's the same situation we're in now. Don't look at the things he's done. We need him because we need to get rid of this woke shit. We need to get rid of we need to, push back against the dispossession of white people. That's how diabolical it is. They don't care about his character. They don't care that he's a 3-time abuse, that he's cheated on all 3 of his wives. Abused and raped his first wife, cheated on his first wife with his second wife, cheated on his second wife with his third wife, cheated on his third wife with a porn star that we know of. Blah, blah, blah. But we'll just ignore that because we're afraid of woke. We'll just ignore that because we can't let women have power. We'll just ignore that because we don't want queer people to exist. Okay. From 2017 to 2021, Trump's first term sees a number of religious right appointments, policy signaling, cultural war moves, immigration, the courts, etc. 2020, post-election, movements such as the Jericho March engaged Christian nationalist mobilization around election results. A lot of the people that were on the front lines of the election denial bullshit, guess where they came from? Christian nationalist organizations. And then 2024 till today, Trump positioning for a return, major initiatives such as Project 2025, the eradicating of the anti-Christian bias, executive orders, and the creation of the White House Faith Office. That's it, man. That's the full fucking story. This entire thing is about a theocratic, fucking autocratic, Christian nationalist fueled takeover of our government. Blurring all the lines, erasing history, denying the existence of cultures, denying the existence of citizens, prioritizing the corruption over the ability for people to just be themselves and live their lives. That's all that people on the left, for the most part, want. Just, why the fuck are you making my life such a big deal? Why do you care who I'm fucking? Why do you care? Why do you care so much who I'm fucking? It's this obsession that they have. People just want to be left alone. gay couples should be able to suffer marriage dysfunction just like everybody else. I'm sure they'd agree. Like, it just becomes this culture war to go after people for no reason other than your Christian nationalism tendencies, because you are afraid of diversity. They speak in terms of equality. They don't ever talk about terms in terms of equity. So it's just like they just don't see women's value. You heard it. You heard it. You heard the uncomfortable questions he was trying to answer. And again, I go back to the analogy he made about a submarine. There's 130 horny sailors down there. You can't put them down. You can't put 3 women down there with 130 horny sailors. Why not? What are you saying? Men can't control themselves? Yeah, no fucking shit. No shit.
我们是不是差一单？